So please, even if it's on silent, it does that. So please just switch it off. Please, let's switch our cellular phones off. Well, comrades, as you know, this is an engagement between ourselves as SCOPA and the Portfolio Committee on Social Development. Together with Sassa and the Post Office, and of course National Treasury is here to deal with a matter that we have been seized with for quite some time. But which I believe, comrades, we should lay to rest today, one way or the other. Otherwise, we can't be going over the same process over and over again. We need to come to a finality. Otherwise, it cannot be correct and it cannot be justified. Now, Comrade Minister, we had hoped to have this engagement with you last week, which did not happen. But in that engagement with the officials, there were other processes that were supposed to happen, which should substantively make today's engagement a step from where we were last week. And we felt that it will be important that at this stage the Post Office as well come. They were last year on the 5th of September. And unfortunately, they came and left. But this was because we had anticipated that by the 31st of August, certain things would have been done and we will be having a different conversation. But because processes were not done, it was therefore not going to serve any purpose if we had said talk to us about what. So we are hoping that we should be able to engage and allow them to talk to us. I must say upfront, comrades, that from where I'm seated, we need to bring this matter to a close. We can't be kicking the can down the road until the 31st of March next year. We need to tie down things, and we need that demonstration from Sassa and the department that they are indeed taking active measures to comply with the directives of the Constitutional Court. If not so, I have no intention for us to waste time sitting here. I wouldn't want to encourage comrades to sit here and just talk for its own sake. If there's nothing to talk about, well, we may as well go back to our offices and do other things, rather than to sit here and engage in meaningless talk. Now, how we're going to do this, comrades, I will hand over firstly to the Minister of Social Development to talk to us, after which we will today want to hear from the Post Office. The Minister is here, but we'll also, DG of National Treasury, want to get your sense, your insights into into how these processes are managed and handled from National Treasury perspective, seeing that it is an aspect that consumes quite a sizable amount from the budget. And it's very critical purely from a financial point of view. And you have gone out of your way as National Treasurer to give a deviation in view of the importance of the matter to government and also to our country. So I would imagine that you were not all right. No, that's fine. Somebody is going to address that. I mean, it's, so I would imagine, TG, that you were not uninterested spectators to the process, and you are very much central to these processes, especially your office dealing with public procurement on scales of this magnitude. So I would imagine that once the noise levels have subsided a little bit, we should hand over to the
Thank you, Chairperson. I think some of the issues were presented by the Sassa officials last week. And maybe I should start where we provide a feedback on procurement of payment services, service provider, phase-in, phase-out plan, progress on insourcing certain payment functions, risk and mitigation plan, and business continuity. Well, we all know what the role of...
Comrade Minister, are you using the presentation they gave us last week, or it is a different presentation? Well, into if it is not the same, then we do not have a copy of that presentation.
It's the same.
Now, if it is the same, I'm not sure if we should go through the same document again with you.
Maybe Chairperson, questions should be asked so that we respond to questions, well, rather than be asked to speak and not knowing where we are supposed to start from.
Well, then your officials, no, your officials should have done their job. I mean, when we met on Tuesday, they were going to engage with the post office based on the offer that was made. So we're expecting that we should get a report on those developments.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
Yes, there was engagement with the post office. And the report I received is that post office said they are sticking to the letter that was written by the CEO of the post office to the CEO of Sassa.
So the long and the short of it is that there has been no agreement between Sassa and the post office since our meeting last week, Tuesday.
I think so, yes, it's true. Because, yes, that is true.
No, Minister, talk to me.
Okay, and what is important is that we've gone through a procurement process. And after the procurement process, we were supposed to meet. And then the post office asked for a postponement. And then thereafter, there was a letter that was sent to the CEO of Sassa. And then on the date of the meeting, where the conditions that were put forward by Sassa, on the date of the meeting to discuss the award, the post office officials said they stood by the letter that was written to Sassa by the chief executive officer of the post office. But over and above that, I think they clarified areas that we think are the shortcomings as well as the strengths of the post office. Because we've said that clearly, that we are not fighting the post office. Starting from the advisory committee, we've been stressing the issue of the post office. But also, after the response by the post office, there are letters that were sent asking for, one, the service providers that they were going to use to provide some of the services, and maybe today we are going to get a response of who those service providers are. And also the issue of the, let me stop there.
I had suggested, comrades, that after the presentation from Sassa, we should allow the post office to make their presentation. And the presentation from the minister is that they have not reached an agreement with the post office. They did not meet with the post office. There was a meeting. Oh, okay. All right. There was a meeting, but there is no agreement. That's the long and the short of it. So I think, logically, welcome, Comrade Chair. Let's allow the post office to talk to us, and then we can then engage if there is need to engage on anything. Please, Comrade Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'll be very brief. There's nothing really, Chairperson, which empowers me to deal with procurement issues in terms of the law, any law which governs us. That is normally dealt with by the accounting officer in the department in our statutes. So I'll be limited in my response, but my task then is to oversee these entities because I have to account to Parliament like we're doing now. So whatever I say is based on the information, and the accounting authorities, the board, are here with the board. I'm here with the management of the post office.
I think, Comrade Minister,
Yes.
referring it to you,
Yes.
I'm actually referring it to them through you.
No, I'm just trying to put that in context so that
Okay.
we contextualize it. The advice, they'll make the short presentation. The advice, Chairpersons, is that I receive. The project owner is, of course, the department, the Sassa as an agency, and we are just a willing organ of state to assist another organ of state. And that's why I'm very cautious about this procurement thing, because we don't see the process as procurement, pure procurement of services. Is the letters and the interaction have been primarily based on the intergovernmental agreement. There's an approach. Of course, we provided information when it is requested by the project owner, and what appears to me is a dispute of facts. And that's why then we were hoping that we will have an opportunity at the government level to deal with the dispute of facts. Now we're really called here to account. I'm told there's been several meetings to try and resolve the impasse, and which have not succeeded, as the minister have said so far. I'll then, on that basis, just to also give a background that this dispute of facts is not a new thing, Chairperson. As you know, as early as 2003, we were providing these payments partially, not fully, and accelerated in 2008 to 2009. Then there was a dispute by one of the service providers in 2009 when we granted the permission to register all new recipients of the grants. And of course, there was an RFI then which was issued in 2011, and a lot of court cases which I'm not going to go to. But the fact is that towards the end of August, the entity which is SAPO then received the letter. Others may say it's not appointment. They regard it as an appointment from the board, from the Sassa, with certain requirements to be met. That letter was following earlier discussions which were held with Sassa up to May, and including the workshops to try and assess the capabilities of the post office to assist the social security agencies. With those few remarks, I thought I should just give that context, that ours is to try as an organ of states to resolve the dispute as quickly as possible. And we were hoping that the officials will actually do that. Unfortunately, they have not managed to deal with this matter. At a government level, me and the minister serve in the Ministerial committee, which normally meets and try and deal with the issues and get progress report and give guidance. Unfortunately, we have not taken this matter to that forum yet. So I thought I should just give that context so that before I hand over to my chairperson, Comfort Ngiti, and his team to make a short presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and honorable members. Let me, because we just have to deal with certain misconceptions which have been created, and I'll ask the CEO to deal with this. The first one is that, as we all know, SAPO previously paid social grants. So you can't test us whether we can do it or not do it, because we have already been tested. Secondly, we were appointed by the former CEO, and from our point of view, that letter is valid and still hold water. It was after the advice of the Treasury Department. And from a legal point of view, we see that letter as an appointment. Then Sassa requested to assess us in terms of the CSIR report. From what we had seen, more than 90%, we were successful in most respects according to CSIR. And in our view, we are ready to do what we are asked to do, but I'll ask Mark to deal specifically with the things that are sometimes created in the media. For example, do you need a license to pay social grants? You don't need any banking license. We have been doing it already. And thank you.
Good morning, Chair, Ministers, Honourable Members of Parliament, colleagues. Thank you for the opportunity to state our position. The purpose of my presentation is to just provide clarity on some of the issues where I think ambiguity has set in. And I will be brief. In the first slides, which go to a high-level overview of the journey to date, I think many of those particular dates have been read into the record by the discussions that have preceded mine. But I wanted to table all of the relevant dates, which are on slides 3 and 4, which set out the various engagements and set out the timeframes, and in particular make note of the fact that there were any number of engagements preceding the CEO's letter to SAPO for the appointment. So it wasn't an unguided situation that it went under. But I'll leave all of those because they're historical facts. Let me talk, if I may, Chairperson, to the possibility of SAPO being a solution aggregator, which is the collaborative letter of appointment that we got from the CEO. I think our primary purpose in wishing to assist SASA is to avoid a duplication of investment. When in an intergovernmental framework you invest in one another's capability, you build an asset for the state. When you outsource such a capability, you create a dependency on the private sector. We would argue for creating an asset in the state. The entire value chain between organs of state can be properly monitored and managed jointly with SAPO and SASA during the build, operate and transfer period, and we can essentially put into effect the wishes of government in the social service which they provide. It would be easy for us in due course to transfer those contracts back, and we could work together towards what is an ever-changing description of a seamless customer solution. SAPO's solution is affordable. In fact, I'd go further than that in saying that any monies and economics which are transferred to SAPO remain within the state. So the price to us is not the driving factor, and we will take instruction on the price if that needs to be the case. We would have various economies of scale in the aggregator. So, for example, the cash in transit services, which are outsourced, neither of the two bodies can provide those as we stand. But we also use cash in transit services as the post office quite significantly. And if we combine the two contracts, our unit cost for delivery would be reduced substantially. It's in that sense that we would bring our economies of scale to bear. The primary focus, and one thing that we were not awarded in SAPO, was the banking services. And I think it's appropriate for me to set out the capabilities of Postbank in this particular context. Okay. It's an autonomous division of SAPO, and its financial transactions are strictly segregated from SCOPA. There is no interference, no cash flow that passes between the two in terms of anything other than service provision agreements. I need to make it clear that we are a designated participant in the national payment system. We perform all our own interbank transactions, clearing and grant recipients full interoperability of access to all ATMs, retailers, and point-of-sale purchases. So like any other autobank card, Postbank is in a position to provide that service. It was one of the points on which we were apparently disqualified because we can't do. We can do it. We're a full member of the Payments Association of South Africa and the Banking Risk Information Center. We're full members of Visa, MasterCard, with card issuing and card acquiring licenses with both associations. Our application for registration as a bank was submitted to the Reserve Bank on the 26th of June. We should bear in mind that the primary purpose usually for applying for a banking license is to take deposits from the public. We already are licensed to do that in terms of the Postbank Act. So this was just to provide more fully fledged banking services. It needs to be made clear that the payment of social grants is a transactional service. It's not a risk lending service. It is simply the accommodation of cash flows. And I should also point out that money, different from parcels, spends most of its time in a computer, not on the back of a truck. So this is a systems capability that needs to be tested, not a credit or risk capability. We have 5.7 million customers in Postbank. We have 5 billion of their money on deposit, and we have 8 billion in cash and near cash instruments with banks and Treasury. We are the highest capitalized bank in South Africa. We have the highest capital adequacy ratio of all banks, and we're the 7th biggest bank in the country. And we've been around, not for that long, Chair, only 142 years. SCOPA, and going to the Postbank capabilities, I think there were misconceptions about our capabilities. We are indeed capable of issuing interoperable cards, and we already do that. We are, of course, able to prevent debit orders against private accounts, and on that matter, as an organ of state, we will take instruction and comply with whatever the government's requirements are in terms of access to individual accounts. We are able to settle banking transactions. Standard Bank is our clearing bank, and so there is no substance in the notion that we are not an acquirer or a merchant. We are, through Standard Bank, which is, I'm sure, a household name for most of you, a recognized clearing bank which clears all of our transactions already. Because we're a full participant in the national payment system, all of our counters are considered as ATMs in terms of how you define an ATM. And beneficiaries can withdraw funds at will from there and various other places. We do not need to register as a merchant for the payment of Sassa grants. So the disqualification on the basis that we can't register a merchant is not with any substance. Bear in mind that the receipt of social grants is predominantly a one-way transaction, the drawing of cash on that ability. Okay. There was a notion that we'd suggested a staggered payment account. I thought it was quite a clever idea, actually. We thought, why don't we pay people on their birthdays? It was just an idea, and it would just reduce all of the queues from being at the same time at the same place every month. But of course, we'd abide by whatever SARS's payment schedules might be. We did provide details of our contracts with our subcontractors during the due diligence process. And in fact, it's recorded here in the CSIR report that we provided that information. I got this report yesterday, which I downloaded from the website. I've been through it, and I want to talk to a couple of points in it. First of all, this report was received by SASSA 6 weeks ago and was part of their consideration in arriving at their conclusions, which their bid adjudication and bid evaluation committees have gone through after receipt of this report. And the information, some of the information that is claimed we haven't given is actually provided in this same due diligence report. I table it. But I think I need to refer a little more to the due diligence report, which I have in front of me. And I went through it. To be honest, I was quite nervous when I first opened it, and he saw it yesterday. There are 218 categories of performance in this report. Of the 218 tests, there were only 8 where it said the requirements weren't met. I went to a government school, and you still paid for schools in those days, but when I went to school, 97% was a pass, not a fail. And that's what we achieved according to the CSIR's evaluation, in terms of the fact that only 8 out of 218 of the requirements were apparently not met. We will contest 6 of those, and we regard 2 of them as not applicable. Okay. SCOPA can produce and deliver the cards in terms of our contract with Gibraltar. We'll name them now because it's in the CSR report, which is a public document. We can produce 2 million cards after 8 weeks, and after that, after the card design has been approved, 2 million cards every 3 weeks. We do therefore have the capacity to produce the cards, and that capacity has been agreed with Gibraltar, and their contract is available if you wish to inspect it. We asked them to give a summary of the contract, which we haven't tabled. At that stage, we regarded that particular contract as confidential, but if it's required, we can table it. Let me go a little further. As far as cash payments at pay point, the point I want to make is one of principle. If SCOPA is invited to assist, we can provide a coverage that is greater than or equal to anybody else. We're not saying we can do stuff instead of, but if you're looking for a service provider, we've got 2,500 points of representation, which no one else has. So whatever your distribution capability is, we can enhance that by that many points of payment. As far as the actual payment of cash in the deep rural areas, I think it's common cause by now that that is most likely to be performed by cash and transit companies who are specialists, in particularly as it relates to the security which is required at those actual points of payment. There's some other points which I think we need to make clarity. We have never approached the Reserve Bank to take over the Grindrod Code. We have had discussions with them on the basis of them approaching us to look at whether there was a transaction. We've never progressed that at all. I think our argument for wanting to help is, and for having a different view about which services were offered. I mean, essentially, Sassa invited us to look at systems design, the creation of the biometrics and other systems. We might even argue as a friend in government that they perhaps should go to CETA for that. It's not our core competence. Our core competence is provision of banking services, and we would argue also that the provision of the core banking service is inseparable from the provision of the banking delivery service. It would be inefficient, at least, for SCOPA Postbank to develop the core banking system and then ask another bank to deliver over that system. The two go hand in glove. I don't think any other bank would wish to adopt our system in their final delivery. Okay, and it's our core competence. I've been to what we do. Postbank at the peak does about 20 million transactions a month. On average, we do somewhere between 8 and 14 million transactions a month. We are a fully operational bank. There are 2 slides which go to the specifics of the components of our value chain, Chairperson, which I just table for the sake of completeness so that there can be cross-reference made for those who wish to go to the RFP responses. And so I won't go through those 2 slides explicitly. There was a debate about our financial capability. I've said before that the Post Bank, which is insulated from the economics of the Post Office Group, has got a net asset value in excess of 3 billion rand, which is represented in cash and near cash. We have all of the ATMs, mini ATMs and card acceptance devices. We have partners which have got adequate capital to provide all of the equipment acquisitions, and we have engaged with them. We have sufficient funds for branch capacitation. We have sufficient well-trained staff, and we have an entire staff planning program which we tabled and presented to the CSIR. As far as core banking is concerned, I've talked about the 3 billion in equity. even with the most stringent of capital adequacy requirements, which would require a 28.75% capital adequacy, whereas most banks operate around 10 or 12%, so 3 times the norm, we would still have something like 1.5 billion of excess capital, which could be utilized to expand the core banking licenses and hardware at an estimated cost of 90 million and another 79 million. We've obviously costed all of the expenses we need. We need to replace 12 million cards at an estimated once-off cost of about 425 million, and that will be recovered over time through the service fee in the 5 years before we hand this over back to Sassa. We just need to increase our call center capacity, which would cost us another 6 million, and the network upgrade, which is currently underway, would cost an additional 50 million. All of those we have sufficient capital for and sufficient cash immediately available to spend. I think we also need to bear in mind that there are significant differences in the economics of the transactions that we've proposed. For example, and I could go through this all in detail, we have tabled it before, we would let interest be earned on undrawn monies, whereas previously that interest was retained by the bank. There are other very explicit, we would allow for 3 free ATM withdrawals a month, whereas previously they were paying money for those ATM withdrawals, and so on. So the numbers in terms of the price per unit are not comparable unless you dig deeply into what we have included. Interest, for example, is a significant number every month on undrawn balances. That never accrued to the beneficiaries in the existing system. We can't understand that. So if I can summarize, Chair, because I also wanted to allow for questions. We, as the Minister said, we still regard ourselves in a situation where we have a legally binding letter based on a demonstrable capability, and we would like to revert to that if needs be. But we would certainly like to offer ourselves up again, having our hope dispelled of some of the misunderstandings about our capabilities, so that those can and have been put to the test. This was an independent assessment of us. So in the spirit of collaboration, we sit here offering to accept an appointment to provide the banking and card production services, which will require the integrated system development that we have. And we would argue that at a minimum, those go to the core capabilities that the post office can offer. Time is not with us, and we would take guidance if we were to be able to now move forward on this. We would seek to do so in an extraordinarily collaborative way, both with the incumbent suppliers and service providers, and of course the project owners. So, Chair, if I may conclude by just saying, we've examined in some detail all of the points that were made in the due diligence report and the points that were made in response to our inability to deliver. And we find a different verdict when we look at it ourselves. And we would argue we sit here ready to help if it is that we can. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thanks very much. In interacting with my chairperson here, DG of National Treasury, maybe we'll come back to you. I'd like to give Comrade Vincent, and depending on the issues he raised, we'll still want to come back to National Treasury and just get their sense of how they think things have progressed. Comrade Vincent? Is your mic on?
Oh, Chair, I was raising my hand to propose that the DG of National Treasury gives his input. And my motivation, Chair, is that correctly as Minister Kwele said, the executive authority have got no role to play in procurement. The role is the officials. Now, we've heard from the CEO of Sassa last week. We heard from the CEO of the Post Office this week. Totally contradictory arguments. And I think it's proper that we then hear from National Treasury what their view is. Because I think National Treasury are the appropriate body to call in the bid adjudication and the bid evaluation team to clarify some of these things. So if we allow him to speak, or the DG to speak first, Chair, then I think we'll have a more productive meeting. That's my proposal, Chair.
No, it's fine. DG?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, honorable members. Chair, maybe let me start by saying, just to put a whole lot of things in perspective. Firstly, procurement in this fashion, as honorable members would know, that it will be the responsibility of the accounting officer, in this case of Sassa. However, and Chair, you did mention at the beginning of the meeting that because of the magnitude of the number that's at play here, we would obviously be interested. Yes, we will be behind in making sure that those procurement processes are above board, 1, 2, and that there's value for money. We're spending almost 170, 200 million rand a month on the grant administration side of Sassa. And our interest, obviously, would be that that number should be 0 and still render the service. Or it should, value for money would obviously dictate that it's actually less. So those are the first two principles that I think we must note up front. We have been engaged with Sassa, even from the previous CEO, on this matter. And at the time, the main issue was around the participation of CSIR1 and including participation of SAPO as an entity. We did not have an issue about SAPO's participation per se, because we know that there's a 2010-2011 judgment that basically allows SAPO to play in the space. And this was an issue between Sassa and SAPO at the time. So we knew that in terms of SAPO being appointed, we did not have an issue. But what we said at the time was that it is important that a hybrid approach is implemented in paying social grants. And this was a conversation after the court processes, whereby we said hybrid in that all banks, we are saying not necessarily SAPO in this case, but all banks should be able to participate. If it means a hybrid, again, meaning even if Sassa has to appoint a service provider to do to pay cash, with the delivery trucks, that must be allowed. If it means there must be some beneficiaries who should actually go to various pay points, that must also be allowed, because thinking that once you diversify the process of payment, there'll obviously be value for money, and then we can determine. The third key important thing that the committee should note was that Sassa then wrote to us asking for a deviation. What deviation was it for? It was deviation to engage with SAPO, which we duly granted, and then so that we didn't want to be seen to be stalling the process. Basically, that process was undertaken in July, and SAPO, as we heard this morning, was then confirmed, and discussion between SAPO and Sassa took place. The key issue was the CSIR and how CSIR come into play. And we are again watching it from a distance, how CSIR comes into the picture, because due diligence was key and critical.
Just a minute, DG. I'm sure there's somebody whose phone is not off. All right, let's continue. I'm not going to give the Netanyahu gaze at the UN. Continue.
A due diligence process was therefore undertaken, as the CEO of SAPO indicated, and he was reading some extracts from the report. So and as I said, it's something that we're behind and looking at very closely in terms of what can emerge out of that process. Number 4, what is also critical and important is that it should be noted that, as I said, this process is a Sassa CO, is a Sassa process where depending and deciding as to who should be sitting in the bid adjudication or bid specification committee, it is essentially Sassa's responsibility. Now, whether we get invited or we invite ourselves is another thing to a meeting, of which obviously we were not part of, and we left that to Sassa to undertake, and when need be, would obviously stand ready to grant or not to grant a deviation if requested. So to date, I can confirm that where we sit is a Sassa-led process. We obviously are worried that firstly, grants should be paid and should be paid, at the least cost come 1st of April next year, and that if there's ways and opportunities to save from the 170, 200 million that we spend every month, we should do that. Now, if SAPO and what they propose is going to arrive or give us that, then it's something that obviously we should look at very closely. Or if through an open, another bid process that Sassa has undertaken, if it's also going to deliver that, maybe that should also begin an opportunity. But again, I think, Chair, maybe I'm not taking this away from the committee this morning, and the Minister of Postal and Telecommunications did indicate earlier, Postal Services, that this matter is something that the IMC on social security is seized with and should be looking at. So what we are saying, and our comments might be, because we still have to internally discuss that, but I also understand that it is the committee's prerogative to ask and to call on us to explain certain things, but without also that process closing the loop, is going to be, we might not find each other. So what I think, the point I'm making is that we stand ready to assist where possible. We stand ready to be invited to any bid adjudication or bid specification or any process. And if the committee or Sassa in particular see it fit for us to oversee this process, we will again be ready to oversee the process. In instances like this, Chair, and this is my last point, in instances like this, we are always called to the bid adjudication committees to be observers. And we have always made ourselves available to play that role. But on this one, so we obviously are not there. But however, if need be, we would obviously want to be participating as observers, so that the process from beginning to end is seen to be we actually have to oversee based on the billion that we almost more than $1 billion that is spent on administration, and on 120 billion on the grants budget. Thank you very much.
All right, now I'll revert back to Comrade Vincent. Yeah, no, just please. No. I said I'm giving Comrade Vincent, and he said, can we allow National Treasury to speak first? National Treasury has spoken, so I must go back to him. Comrade Vincent?
Thanks, Chair. Chair, I'm grateful that DG spoke, and the reason why, Chair, is because taking your lead when you opened up, you indicated that we should not speak for speaking's sake in this meeting. And there's clearly a deadlock. SAPA says we can. One, produce cards, which was a disqualification last week. Two, they say that they are playing in the banking space, which was part of the disqualification last week. So my question then would be, Chair, and I'm not sure who's going to answer it, but my question would be, what is the deadlock breaking mechanism? Because the politics, I really think the IMC must sit and take a decision. Because there's no ways that South Africans can't get their money on the 1st of April. So that's the politics of it, and I don't think anybody's disputing the politics of it. But the implementation DG from National Treasury, if there's a deadlock, what is a deadlock breaking mechanism? And the last point that I want to make, Chair, is that I don't think that we can divorce ourselves from it. Because if we don't insist that there's a deadlock breaking mechanism and a year down the line we find that there was, as the CEO of SCOPA says, duplicate payments or unnecessary expenses, then clearly as Parliament we would have failed in our oversight responsibility, because we can't after today argue that we were not aware of it. Today we were made aware that there is this potential, and if we continue to allow this process to happen and a year later we find there's unauthorized, irregular, fruitless expenses, then Parliament has failed. And I don't think that we should allow ourselves to fail because officials aren't able to see each other. So what is the deadlock breaking mechanism is the question that the accounting officer should answer, if there's in fact a deadlock. In fact there is, because that's what they're saying. There's a deadlock. How do we overcome this deadlock breaking? And the second point, I think the IMC or the interministerial would have to start playing their role, because ultimately the political authority, I mean, what we're sitting here, Chair, is this is a means to an end. The end is that South Africans must get their grants at the end. That's the end process. And that's the responsibility of Ministerial Committee, Chair. So those would be my two comments for now.
All right. Yeah, no, Tim, hang on. I see the Minister of Social Development is anxious to give further clarity or bring a solution. Comrade Minister.
Chairperson, thank you. I think it's going to assist us to give the committee the response of the post office to the request for proposal. I'm not trying to extend your time in looking into this thing, because some of the things that the CEO is talking about here are not in their response. And therefore, we could not anticipate that they were going to be able to do some of the things. And if
Honorable, thank you so much.
Minister, with due respect, we have done this process before, and we have run in circles. What he presents and what we are saying, we know exactly what's going on. And your staff, no, Minister. No, wait, Minister, but I'm talking to the chair.
Please, please, Honorable Minister,
yeah,
allow the Honorable Member to make his point. You are protected, Comrade Nyan.
Okay. Now, what I'm saying, Chair, the acting CEO of Sassa, when she left us this other day, said to us, we are meeting with the post office to sort all the details. And our expectation as of today was to work on that detail. The fact that now suddenly there's new things coming up, it's not our area of interest. Our interest, and we expressed it quite clearly to the acting CEO, that you come here, you sort your problems with Sassa, with SAPO, and you tell us exactly today, what is it that you have agreed on? That's all we were looking for. This long route is not going to take us anywhere. We gave SAPO a special, because we have not listened to them. Now we have listened to them, we want to hear, rather than what is it that we are going to do from here, you see. Because we have heard what, the SARS have said to us before.
Your order stands. I can see almost about 10 hands up. But
So, Chair, I'd like to raise a point of order. We moved into this meeting, Chair, with a set structures.
but I didn't acknowledge you.
No, but and now suddenly everybody is talking. This is a point of order. I'm raising a point of order. At the beginning of the meeting, we had a set procedure, a set structure, as how we were going to handle this meeting. And now suddenly we are going completely off that structure, and I'm getting very suspicious that there is going to be a suppression of questions today, which affects my ability to conduct oversight, which I was elected to do. And so I would like to just request that the chairs
But
between themselves.
I didn't acknowledge
No,
you.
I'm not
There
finished
are
with my point of
many,
order.
there are
I'm not
many
finished with
hands
my
that
point
are.
of order. I'm not finished with my point of order is, can the chairs, can we please go back to the procedure that was agreed upon before the meeting in terms of the questioning? Otherwise, this is going to, like last week, be diluted.
As we chair this meeting, we saw it fit to actually acknowledge members who wanted to speak. And we're still going to continue because they have a right to speak as well. But I was going to say, Honorable Minister, that it is important you have been given your time to give input. SAPO has done the same, and we are not going to allow a situation where is their word against your word, because ours was to get information from all the parties that are involved, and then allow a process of members to interact with that information. However, we will allow time for you to speak, but at this moment, members are interacting with the information from your presentation, from SAPO, from National Treasury. Can I acknowledge, Honorable Member? And point of orders. Which are the point of orders?
Yeah.
If it's one, it's okay. Honorable Malkhas, if it's a point of order, can I acknowledge point of orders? Mama van der Merwe, you are on. Yes.
Ndiyabulela, Chairperson.
Ndiyabulela kakhulu.
Thanks,
Ndiyabulela,
Chairperson.
Chairperson.
It's not you now. Thank you.
Chairperson, if we're giving point of order, we're all going to stand and say point of order. Since the politicians and we are all boiling out, you know, we all want to say something. So, Chairperson, in the last meeting, the very last meeting that we had in the evening last week, we had agreed that we were going to write a letter to the Minister of Social Development, Minister of Telecommunications, and Minister of, the chairperson of the interministerial team, which is Minister Jeff Khadebe. I was hoping that we'll see Minister Jeff Khadebe, because, I mean, we can't keep on going around in circles. We're going to say this has to go to that level when we had said today was the chance for us to have this level. So I need to, before I can carry on with my point of order, I need to know why is Minister Jeff Khadebe not part of this meeting? What happened? Did we get any apology from him?
Let me ask my co-chair to respond to that, but maybe I must make this point, that we had not actually said they will be part of this meeting. We said we would, in fact, we were told they were going to have a meeting today, and then we said we would try to go and find them in that meeting. But I'm not disputing the fact that there was reference to the IMC, and it was also good for Minister Kole to be here together with the entity. But I don't think it removes that key issue of us having to talk about the deadlock that Honorable Vincent is raising, that there must be a facilitation as to how do we go about. But let me allow my co-chair to respond directly to whether Minister Khadebe was contacted. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, comrades. Yes, I did interact with the Minister, Comrade Jeff Khadebe. He indicated to me that he is not a member of the IMC, and he is not the chairperson of the IMC. It is the President of the Republic who is the chairperson of the IMC.
On that point, I was still part of the order.
Yes, yes, you are. But yes, these members will follow you.
Yeah.
I have seen all the members that are coming. Can I not take new ones now?
Yeah.
Up until I
Chairperson-
finish this. Thank you very much.
Ndibulela kakhulu, Chairperson. We've had 5 meetings, if not 4, if not 5 meetings with Sassa on this matter. This is the second time that the post office is given a chance to present, besides the meeting that we had in Pretoria. I'm not sure about the social development committee. And I know that both ministers understand the importance of the whole matter. You know, Tinaba Kola, we are saying, if you play with the most vulnerable people, you are dealing with God. We do not want God to judge this government or this country because of the mistakes that we are making. We are talking about the most vulnerable people, the poorest of the poor, and today we are saying to them, we do not care of what happens to you. We've been saying, and I agree with Comrade Vincent, you know, we've had so many presentations, both ministers. We've had so many presentations. And when you go to SAPO, they're saying something else. When you go to Sassa, they say something else. And we've been emphasizing as SCOPA, please do meet as government departments, because it makes sense for us to be working with government departments instead of taking service providers, especially a service provider from Australia, to come and deal with our issues when we have so many problems. So I think we have passed that stage, Chairperson. And if we keep on, you know, talking and asking questions just for the sake of asking questions, I don't think we are going anywhere. We are not here because we do not have anything to do. We have so many things to do. I would like to say, Chairperson, I want to propose that if the chairperson of the interministerial team or the chairperson or whoever is in charge of this process that we are talking about is the president, then it's the president that we need to talk to, because we are going nowhere. This one is saying this, that one is saying this. At the end of the day, our people who have made sure that all of us here in this room are working, including the officials, because if it was not for them, they wouldn't be here. Those people who have made it possible for us to be here in Parliament.
Please
and
allow
with their mouths.
others to have a bite. Please
I'm
allow
saying
them.
we need to have a meeting with the president as soon as possible and find a way of dealing with this matter. Next year, 1st of March, we are going to have a problem. And I'm saying we are going to fight and make sure that CPS does not come back, Chairperson.
Is that, can I overlook you? Can you come in? No,
Thank
please,
you. Thank
just
you,
a
ma'am,
minute.
and-
I hope you will allow others to.
Yes,
Please,
I'll be very
please,
brief,
please
but-
assist me.
Yes.
Assist me,
I want
Honorable.
to assist you, ma'am. I want to assist
Please.
you, and I want to assist you in terms.
Yes, I know we all want to
I want to
speak,
assist
and I want
you
to do
in
exactly
terms
that.
of procedure. And my request is simply that the Honourable Vincent Smith has made a proposal that it be referred to the Interministerial Committee, which is the proposal that he's made. But I find it difficult to support the proposal if we don't allow for questions first, so that we can have in-depth knowledge whether we must support this. And obviously we all support the principle of breaking the deadlock, which is an important issue that the Honourable Smith has mentioned. So we would like to move towards a solution, Madam Chair, but firstly I think you must just allow the committee and members to ask questions in the ordinary fashion, as my colleague has requested you, and after the questions then we can put the question whether we support the proposal of an interministerial committee, which I think we might support, and we might be moving towards a solution in that regard. Thank you.
I think that's why I was acknowledging people. I was acknowledging them on the basis that proposals are being thrown in, but allow others also to make their own. So we go towards recommendations. Can I therefore go back to the two hands here, and then Honorable van der Merwe? No, okay, it's coming your hand now, but yes. Let me see the hands, yes, but we have had your bite now. Honorable Hope.
Please. Chairperson,
Thanks, Chairperson.
Sorry, mine's not a point of order. Can I just get clarity? So it's Honourable Malgas, then is it myself, and then the Honourable Klangwa, or what is the sequence? Because we're a bit confused now.
That's fine. That's fine. Let's leave
No,
it.
Chair, for us to speak, we must be rowdy. I've been raising my hand, you are not recognizing me. Now, members who are just rowdy, you recognize them.
Oh, please.
Is that the rule?
Honorable member, please.
No, I'm asking, is that the
please,
rule?
let me actually clarify. These hands were long time up, and I was able to see them because I'm sitting here. Your hand came actually after that of Honorable van der Merwe. I'm telling the truth. There's no reason why I should lie. These hands, I even postponed them. Malchas's hand was first up. Can I continue with the way people lift their hands? Honorable Malchas.
Switch on. Thanks a lot, Chairperson. I also would like the meeting to move on. But I have a bit of a concern. You know, we're setting a precedence. Because when we gave the order the way we're going to speak, the minister was asked to speak first. Then it came to the post office and we gave it to the Minister of Communications. And he made it very clear when he was speaking that he is not, you know, procurement is not his purpose, but it does not do it. And I feel what we didn't do here, because in last week's meeting, Sassa said, we meet in the post office, I think it's written here the 26th, the Thursday. And the minister is the political head. We didn't hear Sassa telling us what took place in that meeting. So I think we need a short input, and then we can continue with our questioning. Thank you.
Honorable van der Merwe, we take your point, but I don't want to respond to it at the moment because a presentation has been made. People are not necessarily referring to Sassa. Now they are still asking from the latest presentations that we have had. It's not that Sassa and the minister are going to be locked out. If I may actually correct that one. Honorable van der Merwe.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and I think thank you very much for the presentations from both the ministers and their teams. I think on the issue of breaking the deadlock, which the Honourable Vincent Smith raised, I think today's meeting, you know, it's very important that we break this deadlock because there's 5 months left to 1 April 2018. And as we said before, the payment of grants is the lifeblood. It's what stands between life and death for millions of South Africans. So politicking, fighting, going around in circles, it's no longer an option because we've been doing this process for a very, very long time. So I want to get to the issue of breaking the deadlock. And I want to ask today, I've listened very clearly to Mr. Barnes. Mr. Barnes says, we've got the footprint, we've got the capability, we've got the capacity, we've got the history, we've got the background, we've done it before. And I want to direct my question to the Honourable Minister Batabile Dlamini. I want to ask, is it simply a case that Sassa does not want to work with the post office? I think we just need a clear, unambiguous answer today. We just want the truth. Is it a case that you don't want to work with the post office?
Okay.
Is it a case, Chairperson, I want to just ask a few questions if you will allow me.
Not a few, just ask an additional one,
Okay.
make them two.
I want to know whether it's simply a case that you prefer a private service provider, a private company to the post office. I think we need a clear answer on that today. I want to ask what has changed in terms of the Magwaza letter, offer letter that was sent to the post office vis-a-vis the non-offer that you've sent them in October, because as I understand it, Mr. Magwaza, at that stage your CEO felt that the post office had the capacity. Now you believe that they no longer have the capacity. Yesterday you told us in a press conference that you'll only be finalizing your procurement processes by the end of February. Are you therefore admitting that you will not meet the 1 April Constitutional Court deadline? And are you not concerned that you will be in contempt of the highest court of this land? Okay. And then finally, Mr. Barnes, the question to you is the original offer letter that was given to you, are you planning to take legal action or legal approach to enforce that letter as the first offer letter?
Okay, all right. Now we're going to go this way. It's Madlope, it's Kekane, it's Tim, and then it's Flengwa. Then we'll come back to you. Yes, yes, comrade.
No. Thanks, Comrade Chair. I think last week when we said we need this particular meeting, it was because we want to get together facts. It was about facts finding. because the presentation that we got, the shortcomings that we're hearing that Sassa is having, most of us did not believe that it's like that. And then we said, now we need the political heads of these departments, because this particular matter is political, because it deals with service delivery, the lives of the people. So it's important for us to get the facts from all of them. It's unfortunate, co-chairs, that we listened to the others last week, Sassa, and now the post office as well as the treasury, now they are talking, they never hear what they said last week. You know, I was of the view that maybe the CEO of Sassa is going to summarize, because when the minister was starting to talk, she was saying that no, the post office in their letter, what they are saying now is not the same. And it came out last week, if we remember very well. The CEO said, after Tim came up and said that the CEO of the post office is saying that they can do everything, she did say that what they wrote to them is not the same with what Tim is saying. It's not the first time that we are hearing about that. It was said last week. Okay. Because we want to get the facts, as these both committees, we want to hear what transpired from the post office on their response to Sassa, because that's what came out last week.
All right.
After that, Chair, lastly, because also they did not say that they can't produce cards. They said they can only produce 2.4 instead of 4.2 million. That's what was said, presented by Sassa. So we want to hear, because according to the CEO, is saying 97% of the work they're gonna do. We as politicians will prefer that the post office is doing the work. But what we want to get is fact finding, because when they fail at the end of the day, the people that will be responsible will be Sassa at the end of the day.
All right.
So that's what we want. And also we want to get that capabilities and the capacity to understand that they are not going to outsource that work. That 97% is within their capabilities. Thanks, Chair.
All right. Comrade Kikan.
No, thanks, Chair. Chair, let me start by saying we are venturing into another terrain. And I think you clearly indicated when we started this meeting that the reason why we adjourned the meeting last week was that we were informed by officials from Sassa that there's a meeting the following day. We then said, on the basis of that, let's allow that process. And they came back this morning. They clearly indicated to us that there was a deadlock in that meeting. And Vincent, oh, by the way, he's my friend, Honorable Vincent, came up with the way forward. And the way forward is very clear, that now that there is a deadlock, we need to look at a deadlock breaking mechanism. Now the question that I'm asking myself, is this a negotiating forum? And if not, the questions that we'll be asking, that is as honorable member, sorry, will that assist the process? If it is not, you clearly indicated that let's not talk for the sake of talking. If there's direction for us to break the deadlock, let's refer this issue that is to that structure and get a solution to this. Because we'll sit here the whole day and lament as to who is right and who is wrong. At the end, we are not going to, resolve this problem. If the proposal is, the president is the chairperson of the IMC, urgently, let's get the president here and clearly indicate to him that there is a deadlock. These two departments seem not to be agreeing. We are saying, because we are empowered, that is to finalize this matter. We want you to finalize this matter. And we provide, that is timelines.
All right. Okay, fine. Tim?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, at the beginning of the meeting, it was agreed that we would work in our normal SCOPA fashion, which is to have an interaction with the officials, back and forth, and that's where you get your information. All right? This barrage of questions from one side to the other, frankly, lets the officials off the hook, because they just sit and listen to us and give nothing back. In actual fact, it's an easy day. So, Chair, the entire purpose of this inquiry, this hearing, this meeting, was to apply the Audi et alterum partem rule. And that is, let us hear the other side. And so today, SAPA have come and they've given us the other side. And I hear what my colleagues are saying about saying, let's break this deadlock in the IMC. But the point is, there are a lot of subtext and subtones going on here that need to be clarified. Because what will happen is, there will be a deadlock breaking mechanism, and if we don't clarify those undertones that are clearly present, in a month's time, they will report back, we cannot break this deadlock. And then we are 4 months away from the deadline. And so it will continue. So I think here and now today, I would like to delve into issues that specifically relate to these undertones. And so, because clearly today you're not going to allow a to and fro, as Honourable van der Merwe got 5 or 6 questions in, I'm going to ask my questions. And the officials can, because clearly you are, I don't know what's, this is a very strange SCOPA environment, and it's not what I'm used to, and I certainly hope that my worst suspicions are not confirmed.
Chairperson, can I
No, I'm busy.
Excuse me.
I'm on the mic.
Chairperson,
Oh, my word.
excuse me. We have not come to attend a SCOPA meeting. This is a joint sitting. So please, when you address us, don't think we are visitors. We are here because we have taken a portfolio decision to come and meet. Please.
All right, thank you. Right, let's move on. So the questions I'm going to ask are as follows. Mr. Barnes, when you get a chance to respond, can you confirm how long you've been in the banking industry, number one? Number two, can you confirm for us, by my calculations, my colleagues' calculations, you said in order to upscale to be in a position to assist with payment grants, you're going to need to spend around about 650 million rand, and then a possible 50 million rand per annum for network upgrades. So that amounts to around about 900 million. So would you just confirm the veracity of that figure? Then I'd like to go to our Sassa friends. The Minister has said on a number of occasions that her upgrades, her idea of this whole costing thing is going to take 6.4 billion. So I'd like to just juxtapose the 6.4 billion against the 900 million, because obviously those are two hugely different amounts. Then I'd like to ask whoever here at Sassa can answer, because I don't think the Minister is entirely in touch with what's going on in Sassa. So others may be better placed to speak on this. Right, so the question is...
Just a minute, Tim.
I think I need a protection. The member cannot just throw words to me and nothing is said.
All right. Okay.
Please.
No,
please.
No, that's fine, Comrade Minister. I thought he meant you are not dealing with the day-to-day administrative issues. Okay. All right. No. Oh, okay. No, that's fine. Tim?
Okay, I didn't know sarcasm was unparliamentary. But anyway, let's carry on. So...
Chairperson, may I ask the member to withdraw what he said?
No, I think I've taken your point, Comrade Minister. Tim, let's...
All right, Chair. I won't engage in a battle of the wits with an unarmed person, so I'll withdraw my sarcasm.
Sure.
Right, can we please move on? Okay. Right. The question I want to ask, and I think the most appropriate person is the acting CEO. What can you specifically put your finger on the section of the CSIR report that disqualifies SAPO entirely from taking on the work? So that's the one question. In the scenario that SAPO, that you obviously have considered, that SAPO don't do any of this work, which company did you have in mind in South Africa, or group of companies, that would be able to do it? And at what stage of readiness are they? The background to that is we have SAPO that CSIR say just need to scale up. So CSIR say three things. They see SAPO needs to scale up, they need to employ more staff, and they need to train staff. Those are the three major issues that CSIR say in certain areas. So which company do you have in mind? And I understand this is not a bidding thing, but you must have somebody in mind saying, you know, we've got SAPO here, and then we've got A, B, C over here could do the same thing. Otherwise, surely you would. Sorry, there's a bit of disruption. I just want to make sure you've got my question, Acting CEO. The issue is, in your planning, you're thinking SAPO can't do this, so there must be other companies that can. Do you have knowledge of any other companies? And if you do, what do you anticipate they are going to charge to scale up? So once again, we've got the 650 million, the 6.4 billion. What are your scenario projections in terms of what that's going to cost? Then, two last questions. Actually,
All right.
three last questions. No, Chair, please. Please, not today. Okay, RFP. No, Chair, we received this document. I've just got three, and then I'm finished. Sure. We received this CSIR document from yourselves last week. We noticed that the RFP is not in it. When can you provide the RFP to us? We'd like to see who wrote it and what the terms of reference were. Then, second to last question, why did you not involve Treasury in any of your interactions? By my count, on the SAPO timeline, there were 13 interactions before the wheels came off in this last month. 13 interactions where you dealt with SAPO, you discussed capability, discussed capacity, you issued a letter to them which SAPO, I believe, is legally binding. You've done all these great things to move us towards you, and now suddenly it's fallen off. Why has Treasury not been involved at any of those meetings? And then finally, last question, very simple. Does CPS have a banking license? You say SAPO don't, and that's why you don't like them. Does CPS have one? Do they have a banking license?
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Hlengwa?
Chair. Thanks. Chair, maybe let me just say at the outset, I said I'm not a prophet at one meeting. And I warned then, and my worst fears have come to life. I told this meeting, the minister was saying that come 1 April 2018, we will see CPS left, right, and center paying these grants. And I said then that there was an effort which was being engineered to derail the post office. And precisely that has happened today. There was a meeting, a workshop in May. We have requested the details of that workshop, and we have never received them between Sassa and the post office. We've never received those details. We went to the Sassa offices after they'd failed to meet their own deadlines. And I remember quite explicitly, they were so happy about what I said, they even put it up on Twitter, when I told them, be committed to your own commitments. What happened? Those commitments came to zero. Chairperson, what is happening here, we are being undermined right to the gutters of what determines what undermined is. Because I certainly cannot understand, Chairperson, how it is that qualified people, and I use the term very cautiously, can engineer a national catastrophe of this magnitude and there's no consequences. We asked these very officials, who is in the IMC? It was them that told us that it is chaired by Minister Radebe. It is news today that it's the president. We are being fed lies day in and day out. Now, must we sit here and tolerate that kind of nonsense, Chairperson? I certainly cannot do it. Because we are undermining the taxpayers, no change, because my comments are not coming in the form of questions, but I must ventilate these things on behalf of South Africans who are being undermined by these officials. Why is it that we are here? We have said that CPS is a bosom body of Sassa. And precisely that today is coming to fruition. We've had the musical chairs of officials here who have tried to do the right thing and they've been chucked out because a national catastrophe is being engineered, Chairperson. So if we wanted to break this deadlock, the IMC will not help us. It has failed dismally. 0 out of 10. They failed. Because had they been doing their work, would not be in this mess that we are in now. So we're going to come here and ask questions for the sake of asking questions. Chair, I am putting a firm proposal to what a parliamentary inquiry is needed to look into this matter in its entirety. We have spoken about contract management before. It was not a matter of CPS or not. It was a matter of initially Sassa themselves engineered the collapse of the contracts because they knew what CPS was coming to an end, and they engineered a catastrophe then, and they're engineering one now. Chair, if it works like corruption, smells like corruption, looks like corruption, and is handled like corruption, then it is corruption. So, Chairperson, by end of business today, you're going to receive a formal letter from the IFP requesting that we institute a parliamentary process to investigate these things and hold all those people before us. Chair. Finally, I would really want Treasury to clarify me because the DG made a very telling statement and it worried me. I hope he can clarify it. When he says they granted the deviation because they did not want to stall the process, I would hope that's not the official reason why they did. I would like the reasons why they did, but that is at the heart of this thing. And finally, Chair, I've said before, and I'm saying it again, we are being fed these fairy tales in this whole thing. So it is now, because the challenge I have, Chairperson, is that even information before the committee and committee members is not the same. Certain members are receiving information outside the committee. That is not fair. It does not assist the process. Let us be transparent in how we are doing these things. But quite frankly, Chairperson, we can sit here until the cows come home. A decision has been taken by Sassa that they are going to derail this thing because they want to bring back CPS.
Right. Comrade Chilwane, Comrade Mente, and then Ross.
Chairperson, thank you very much. Actually, Chair, I just wanted to speak, maybe probably for the sake of speaking. Yes, Chairperson, because what the answer that was, the question that was asked by Comrade Smith has not been vented into. And also to echo what Comrade Kekana has said, I don't know whether we have become a bid adjudication committee or a bid, what is it, BIC, the other one, the other name. Because our evaluation committee, because our role as this committee and this joint committee is to hold the executive accountable. But what we are doing today, I don't know, Chairperson, me included, what we are doing today, me included. But I wanted to state, Chairperson, that we are not mediators, but ours is a worry that we would want to see the court ruling or the court judgment being met by the 1st of April 2018. And the other comment that I wanted to comment on is the issue, two of my colleagues have already raised it, the issue on the role of National Treasury. The DG, Mr. Mrajani, said that they would really love to be part of the discussions because the crisis at this kind of magnitude, be that National Treasury role is not affected, it's a worrying factor, Chairperson. I think we should echo that to say National Treasury should play their role because they are the ones that they are giving money to either entities or departments. So it's not a question as it is, Chairperson. It was just a comment. But I don't know in terms of the National Treasurer or in terms of the Minister of Social Development, what is it that they are going to do in terms of Honorable Tim, the Minister doesn't see me. You are obstructing my view. Thank you. Yes, I wanted to ask the Minister to say if they can be able to work hand in glove with the National Treasury. I think it will give a progress in what the debacle we are facing on. Chairperson, I think that's what I wanted to say. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Commitment.
Thanks, Chair. Chairperson, okay, I don't want to repeat what was said. But Comrade Vincent asked a question, how do we break a deadlock? There is two things that happened here. Now, before I get there, firstly, why is General Matagata not here? General Matagata Hawks. Why is she not here? Because we are facing perjury here. We're being told things that are not happening. And stories are interpreted the other ways that we don't understand. I don't know if we have invited her or we have stopped inviting the Hawks into the meeting, because there is perjury happening here in the meeting since last week. So I think we need to really take that seriously and start having, in fact, laying criminal charges against officials who lie to Parliament. You don't come to Parliament and lie. It's only us who can say whatever and we will not be taken to court for it. But we can't have officials that must come and account here and lie. It's not going to happen. Okay, secondly, Chair, the CSIR report, which the CEO of the Post Office had, he even quoted 97% pass. But the BAC and the BEC has a different scoring. Now it comes to my mind, who designed the scoring sheet of the BAC and the BEC? Who was involved? Because it's designed in a manner that SAPO must fail. How can in a body that is not in SAPO, in SASSA, support SAPO and score it 97%, when the BEC and the BEC scores it way lower? Now it goes to the deadlock. How do we break it? Chair, this is my proposal. Can we take both these reports, which are never coming to us, were never given? That's why Uhlengwa is so frustrated. We can also read and see these things. Can we ask National Treasury to take these documents, evaluate them, give us a report next week as to is SAPO fit to take the position of giving grants? Can we have that happening? And next week we can get a report from the National Treasury. Because between us, SASSA, and SAPO, we're never going to sort this problem out. We need another body that is going to do evaluation. And then secondly, I want to also support what Hlengwa has come up with. That report must come into an inquiry. That full inquiry must investigate who is busy cooking a failure of this process so that CPS can come back next year. We are not going to have CPS, but we need to get to the bottom of who is steering this ship to the wrong direction.
All right, thanks. Ross?
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, the DA position is also that we request the National Treasury to play a leading role and to furnish us with the report at least within 2 weeks. We also support the issue of an inquiry, but time is of the essence, and certainly parliamentary inquiries takes a long time. that is fine. But with regards to the interministerial committee, if we were misled that the Honourable Radebe is not the chairperson of that committee and that the president is heading that committee, I think it casts aspersions on the committee. But certainly the DA, I think we would like to voice our disappointment with the ministers present that it was never escalated to the interministerial committee. That's just an observation, Chair. And then I'd like to ask questions.
No, wait. Just make your point. Don't prefix it with DA this, DA that.
Okay, fine.
Then it becomes a problem.
The point is that both these ministers were members of the interministerial committee, and the issue of Sassa and the risk failure to pay grants on the 1st of April 2018 was never escalated at that committee. I think what we should do as SCOPA, we must ask for the minutes of the interministerial committee to see whether it was actually raised and whether that constitute dereliction of duty by both ministers being present here today. Chairperson, then I'd like to ask the Post Office with regards to the latest medium-term budget policy statement, where there was an allocation to the Post Office, Mr. Barnes, of 3.7 billion rand in the medium-term policy statement with regards to debt settlement. Should it not be more advisable if there was such a huge allocation that to use it for perhaps infrastructure, systems, and I would like to have your views on that. And then also there was an indication, Chairperson, from the Auditor General that the Post Office is one of those entities, and that was in the audit outcomes of 2017, that might not be able to continue as a going concern. I think this committee needs to take note of that, and we would like to have the response of the Post Office in that regard as well. And then just dispelling misconceptions. The issue of the banking license. The 26th of June was an important day where there was an application made for a banking license. Has that banking license been granted to the Post Bank yet, or are you only operating in terms of Treasury regulations and Treasury interventions that you can continue with what you're trying to propose to us?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
I'm also a member of the committee and has a right to speak. I've observed that others are asking questions. Questions are directed to Sassa, Minister, and Post Office. That's the work that is in front of us as chairs. 2, there is a strong feeling that people speak for the sake of speaking. But can I confirm that in my legal understanding, every member of a parliament as a portfolio has a right to speak. And it must be given that opportunity, whether it's foolish or wise, but it's a right that they come into this meeting with. And I would wish indeed to confirm that as long as you lift your hand, we don't know what you're going to ask. And you are not obliged to follow another person. It is your right to say what you think. And I would wish indeed, Coach, to raise a concern in that one. But at the same time, recommendations go to a conclusion that we must have an inquiry, that we must see the president, but all these have not been fully discussed. It's a recommendation that is not entertained, but seen as a decision going forward. And I would be very much willing to be assisted in understanding how we are managing. People are complaining that it is not managed the way it's supposed to. But my also feeling is that speaking of everyone who wants to speak is a key democratic approach that is there, provided for all members. 2, the issue that we had agreed to go to the IMC. I don't know now when we are going to invite the minister, to the president to come in, because we had taken a decision that today, after this meeting, we will try and interact with those. I don't know, Coach, because you were the one who was interacting with them, whether it was agreed that they must now come here in this particular meeting. That those things I would want to be clarified.
All right. No, my understanding, comrades, is that, as you rightly point out, when comrades raise their hand, they make inputs, they make suggestions. I think as we move towards the end, we'll then try and pull all those suggestions together and then come up. I'll give the two honorable members after team, and then Honorable Sonti.
Yes, it's Honorable Sonti.
I'm giving those who have not said a word yet. Yeah.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm actually very distressed, and I'm very distressed that at this time last year we were sitting in exactly the same situation where the poor and the vulnerable are being held to ransom. Nobody else. The poor and the vulnerable are being held to ransom, and we have to pay their grants. And when we're sitting with a process that appears to be manipulated, they are the ones that suffer, and I find that terribly frustrating. My question to the Treasury. In the last meeting, the CEO, acting CEO of SASA stated that Treasury and SASA were not meeting eye to eye in terms of the funding and financial requirements needed to go forward on this process. And I find it very disturbing that the CEO of SAPU quotes 650 million rand, and I've taken it from your slides, Mr. Barnes. And then we have another talk of 6.4 billion, which is the gap in that picture is alarming. My second question goes to SASA, or goes to the Minister. Minister, were you at the meeting with SAPU last week when this negotiations took place and this contract was suddenly suspended or cancelled or not agreed to or whatever? And if not, why not? Because you are the accounting officer in terms of this whole department. Secondly, who exactly on your team is reporting to the IMC? Is it you, Minister, or is the whole of SASA there? And if SASA are there, why have SAPU not been invited to the Ministerial Committee to give their side of the discussions? I think it's very important that we understand who wrote this RFP that was given to SAPU and when it was written. We have been doing this, going round in circles, since 2014. That RFP, you had a whole advisory team, you had a whole task team who worked on this for a year, and all of a sudden an RFP comes up, whoops, in July of 2017. But this is a matter that's been worked on with advisory teams and task teams for over 3 years, if not longer already. And I would need answers to those questions. And second, and lastly, Chair, if I may, last week we were kindly given a copy of the CSI report, and yet sections 2 and sections 3 are missing from this report. Why were we not given the whole report? That makes me very restless, because then it indicates that there is something that has been hidden from us when we don't get a whole report. And I'm very concerned that when we get this report, we don't get the RFP report, the RFP, to do a comparison to the CSI report against the RFP ourselves. We're not all in the dark. Some of us understand how to do that, and I find that very concerning. And lastly, and it's a comment, I have read the CSI report with the pages missing, and there is nothing in this report. There is not one page in this report that says SAPU cannot do the job. It states that they just need to upscale, they just need to train, and they just need to get more staff. I do not understand why we are sitting in this position. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Sango.
Thank you, Chair. I also would like to thank the ministers and their teams for the presentations. And my question, some of my questions have already been asked by colleagues. So I'm left with a question that says that when we met last week, there was a undertaking for Sassa to meet with SAPO, and then we would hear today what's going on. I believe that question has been asked previously. But what I want to know then is the press conference yesterday a result of the meeting of SAPO with Sassa? Because one would like to say that was the latest information that we've had, where a press conference was conducted in the Eastern Cape, and information was shared. Was that the result of the meeting between SAPO and Sassa? I would like to hear that. And also, Chairperson, just leading to this process, one feels like it is last year this time, because we're sitting in exactly the same place with the situation of the institutionalization of the grant payment system. But during the times when the preparatory work was being done for next year, there was a task team that consisted of the DGs, the DG of Social Development, the DG of Treasury, the CEO of Sassa, and all other people that were involved. I believe there was SAB even. There was the South African Reserve Bank in that task team. I would like to know what has happened to this task team, or has its work come to an end, and this is why we are where we are at the moment. And I wish my colleague in the IFP all the best with trying to get a full parliamentary inquiry, because we tried all that last year and it did not happen, and this is probably why we are where we are today.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, sure. No, I said Sonti.
Yabonga, Chairperson. Okokuqala mina into endingayithetha ayingombuzo ukuthi nje i-comment. Okokuqala, Chairperson, ndiva ubuhlungu ngokokubana lo mnyango lona ubaluleke kakhulu ki-South Africans. Ndicinga uba even namhlanje bonke abantu balindele ukuva iziphumo eziqaqambileyo. But okubuhlungu ngoku asitholi nto. Ukuthi nje into esibonayo ukuthi kuyadlalwa apha and kudlalwa ngabantu abadala. Kakhulu uSassa edibene noSapho. Namhlanje besilindele okokuba sibe sisiva izinto ezibalulekileyo for ababantu sihlelele bona apha namhlanje, abahluphekileyo, abalambileyo.
Okay.
Esilindele okokubana nge-1st zika-April 2018 babe bathola oko bakufanele ukuba babe bayakuthola. But into esiyitholayo apha asitholi into inesihlahla esicacileyo, kuyadlaliswa nje ngathi nangabantu bakuthi belizwe lonke liphela ama-South African.
Okay.
Bendikhe ndatsho ke, Chairperson, na last week kwiveki ephelile ndathi uSassa ngendlela endibona ngakona ulala ngengubo enye no-CPS. Yiyo ke lento kunzima okokubana kube nesigqibo esipheleleyo esipasiswayo phakathi kwakhe edibene noPhosa.
Okay.
Andiboni even kwezi nyanga nithetha ngazo eziyi-5 ezisele ukubana kukhona into ezawuba iyimpumelelo. Ndiva nithetha ngopresident ngoku okufanele uba abe uyeza apha ezophendula. Ndinexhala. Inoba sawubuyela back to the square, kuyafana nje. Andinalo ithemba loba ikhona into ezawuphinda iphumelele. Xa kusathethwa ngopresident ndiyakhathazeka kakhulu ngabantu bakuthi.
Okay.
Kakhulu, Chairperson, enkosi.
Okay. Right. Comrade Anna, must give Comrade Boy and Dudley. They haven't said a word. Yes. Comrade Boy and Dudley. Then I'll come back to you.
Comrade Chair, one thing that I want to clarify, and where we sit at the SCOPA, we support SAPO. We support SAPO with all its weaknesses. We're not going to be shaken about that one. That's why we've been very clear in all this month that a relationship between SAPO and Sassa is a working relationship. And that means that's going to be our first matter we put in front of any person that we are going to deal with that. We want to resolve that particular matter. We are not interested in CPS, and we're not going to dance to the tune of CPS. The second thing that we must do, Chairperson, is SCOPA and the Joint Committee, is to accept and acknowledge the report of the panel. The report of the panel becomes very much important, Chairperson. because it explains all the weaknesses of the state in how it deals with this particular matter. How the ministries and interministerial committee deals with it is been not clearer in our minds. And that's why we are saying, let's take a step up. Let's re-engage the IMC about this particular report. But the incapabilities that we have been able to show last week about Sassa are rewritten and have been expressed quite solidly in the panel report. And quite going along with what the panel says, it says we should work with the post office. SAPO and Sassa must work together. And that's why we're saying to the CEO, who's quite important of Sassa, that tell us what are the problems. Now, she has not done it today again, because the panel says the leadership of Sassa seems not to be able to commit itself and be taking this matter a little bit serious. That's where our problem is. That's why we're saying, National Treasury, we have the report of the panel. I would have loved if you have gone it through and have a look at it. And we are saying as a collective, if we could hear from the different views that are expressed and the confidence that we do have in Treasury, is that you should come to the fore and provide leadership and deal with the technical matters that we are dealing with at this particular moment. Because if ever Treasury is not involved, we are going to go for a fight. And we think with your role being involved, because the panel is not confident of the leadership of Sassa. It has written it overall. I've read it many times last week. So it's important that where Treasury comes in, that it starts giving leadership. It can't outsource this particular responsibility to other people. We acknowledge this department and what, but we are in a level where we feel that you must come into this particular matter so that you can build the confidence of our people. It's quite correct that Mama is saying, it's quite correct what members are saying. We have run around in circles. We have done these processes before. And we were promised by both parties. We have spent a lot of time with SAPO. We have spent a lot of time with Sassa. But both parties have not been able to resolve the matter that is in front of us now. And the panel seems not to be confident. And the panel complains quite a lot, like us now, that there's a lot of lack of information that is being provided to them. Although there are important infrastructure in the negotiations that could be able to provide direction and resolution of some of the challenges that are taking place. That has not happened, Treasury. And if we can be like here now, I'll tell you quite frankly why I would have supported the Honorable Hlengwa on what Parliament could do. But the only thing that I have a challenge, Honorable Hlengwa, we only left with 2 weeks and 2 sessions, and we close. And that's why part of the suggestions of Sassa is to say the processes will only start in February. By that time, we're all coming back to Parliament. We would have been going into the State of the Nation address. And 2 months down the line, there's expectation by our people to say what has been resolved. Now, you can't be issuing tenders in February with an expectation that you go to the Constitutional Court and says, do this. You see, it's not going to be possible. You see, that's all where we are going to have a problem with you. But we would have to re-emphasize our position that how do we as parliamentarians, because one thing that you should be acknowledging that we've been successful so far in being able to hold them to account. And that one we're not going to run away from. Any other approach you are taking, we're not going to run away from that process. Okay. Both these institutions, both SAPO and Sassa are going to remain here with us. We're going to put the pressure we're putting in. If there's irritation amongst ourselves, it will happen. But at the end of the day, both Sassa and SAPO are going to remain with us. Okay. And we're going to continue putting the pressure. And my last point, Chairperson, is to continuously emphasizing, Mama, why we say the IMC? Because both ministers are not telling us the things we want to hear. And both of their departments are at loggerhead. And then, I mean, since we have started this meeting, we have not heard anything different, you see, from what we know. And it will be very difficult because we don't appoint ministers. The only person who appoints ministers is the president. And it's in our interest to say that, Mr. President, as Parliament, we will give our report back to the Speaker. Definitely so. We'll give it to Frolic, the chair of chairs. We'll definitely submit a report of our dissatisfaction to the President who has the IMC. Not because there's any other thing, but because we want to show that we can't be repeating ourselves year in, year out. Even the courts are putting us under pressure, and we are not able to find solution. So it's in that context that we are raising these particular matters. This is what I'm saying, honorable members. This is how we want to see if ever we can resolve the matters in this particular way. Parliament will play its role. We will engage. We'll ask for all solutions, anything that you find constitutional to be able to deal with this particular matter.
All right.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Okay, thanks very much. Honorable Dudley, I was already saying to myself, God forbid you don't talk today, but you raised your hand.
I've been mostly well covered by my colleagues here today, and importantly, there's a strong view that for the POSB or POSA to step up to the plate will be in the best interests of South Africa. So for me, what hasn't come out clearly today is that there are 3 ministries represented here. I would want to hear from each of those ministries, what is it going to take to break the deadlock? Because clearly that's what we want. We want the deadlock broken. We want to move forward in that direction. So thank you. That's all I'll have to say.
Amen to that. Comrade Kuno?
Thanks, Chairperson.
Yeah. Right, after Comrade Kuno, we must come back this side. I know that.
Yes, and get responses. Thanks, Chairperson. One of my colleagues has said that we are not the BAC and that, but I think it should be clear, Chairperson, that we are the defenders of the public purse, and we should not be apologetic about that. And our approach as SCOPA has always been that we want to help each other to make sure that things are done correctly, so that we can improve from a situation to another situation. I'm reading a report in front of me, Chairperson, because even last week I talked about the history problems that Sassa has had in terms of paying of grants, or grants. Since 2012, the CPS was awarded a 5-year tender, a 10 million tender, which all pay took them to court, and they said it was unlawful. I want to say to the DG of Treasury, from the beginning, they were supposed to have been involved. The Chief Procurement Officer from Treasury was supposed to be part of this process. And I think if they were part of, of the key players, we wouldn't be where we are today. And it's about time that the new Brown, I always forget the name because we've never met the new Brown, the new procurement officer.
Yes, Mr. Matebul.
Okay, Mr. Matebul. Welcome. Oh, welcome. Okay, welcome.
You look like Mdluli there, man.
Yeah, man, I thought you were in Mdluli as well.
Okay,
welcome,
okay,
Dr. Matebul.
Okay.
Dr. Matebul, this is a process that we should have taken from day one when we started. This is a problem of a tender that has been awarded unlawfully. Treasury regulations are quite clear, and there's no one who's above law. And as Parliament, we cannot legislate and make sure, and after that, help somebody else to undo the good work that we are trying to achieve. Minister Batabile, you have been, I want to tell you, from the bottom of my heart that you have been ill-advised by your, your officials. Day in, day out, Chairperson, if we can start by saying, maybe the PMG, they should give you all the notes of all the meetings that we've had with them. It's contradictions from contradictions. It's not going to help us at all. But what we are trying to say today, for us to solve a problem, we have to come up with with solutions. Right. For instance, let's talk about CSIR, Chairperson. We did not appoint CSIR, but Sassa did, and they paid them money for them to write a report for them. But after doing that, they did not even honor the report that they were given by them. So, Chairperson, I'm still reiterating to the fact that, and adding to what Comrade Nyami has said earlier on, that we need to meet with the President as soon as possible to try and get into the bottom of this. We are, tomorrow is the 1st of November. We are only not, it's not even 5 months that we are left with. It's 2 months if we want to be practical with the real issues. It's 2 months that we are left with to be able to make sure that the 1st of April happens. Okay. And as we can see, it has never happened. For Sassa to write a proposal or do something, they come up with deadlines that they never even meet. The CEO last week said that, now I'm talking to the CEO of Post Office, that the Post Office presentation was good, but when it came to filling of forms or writing what the tender bulletin wanted, they did not give the full information that they were giving. So I'm just saying that it's a word against this one. We've been to SAPO and we knew, and most of the questions that we're asking based on the information that we're already given by SAPO to Sassa. So I'm saying, Chairperson, when you conclude the meeting later on, we really need to come up with a clear position of what do we do. Okay. Because we are all under pressure. It's a situation of South Africa, and South Africa should stand, and we are here being the mouthpiece to the mouthless. Thanks, okay. Chair.
All right. No, that's fine. I think the issues have been fully ventilated. Yes. I would imagine that from Sassa side, from SAPO, from National Treasury, Matebula, I don't know Matebula wale Johnny or Dondorofane Ganen. Right. We'll be interested to find out from your side. How do you, and tomorrow we're with you on deviations and expansions. So this is one deviation you gave. How does it work? What is your role? What happens? And all that kind of stuff. So I would want to go to, just a minute.
May the minister and the team, when they respond on specific matters, that if there's going to be an issued tender, say tomorrow, what if there will be bad losers and they take us to court? And then if that happens, I'm not going to anticipate what SAPO is going to do because SAPO is here. If they were not, I could have said something else. But because they are here, is to say, SAPO, I don't want to say they agree or they don't. What if also they don't agree? And then the tender process, because there is a matter, Honorable Minister and the CEO, that these adverts did not go out because SAPO was still being engaged. Now we have a situation that tomorrow, I'm exaggerating, you will issue tenders. Then there will be the whole process of procurement. And then results come out, people dispute, we go to court. What is there for us to go out of this house of fora to go and say, indeed, there are two prongs to say, if we still process, there will be a way of paying our people, not deviating from the court pronouncement. So I would want, when you make so that question doesn't come later, when you make all responses, we will then know that we will be going out here knowing we will pay, even if there's a court case, even if we will pay. I just want that assurance.
All right, we'll start from the Department of Social Development and then to the Post Office and then National Treasury. I want us to really wrap this matter, and then we'll probably tie down, lift out a few suggestions that have been made, agree on them and move forward. Comrade Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, members of Parliament. I hope we haven't come here to continue with Black Monday. Chairperson, the CSIR is a state institution like the Post Office.
I hear you on Black Monday, but you are
So,
wearing
Chair,
black
point of
yourself.
order. What is the minister referring to?
No.
Chair, what is the minister referring to?
No. We don't.
Is it more of that unparliamentary sarcasm?
No.
Yeah.
No. Continue, Comrade Minister. I was just observing that you're wearing black, but continue.
And then I need to be assisted to find where 93% is from the report of the CSIR. Because there is a summary that is very clear. It's in your report. Read your report. And then also negotiations. You are told not to involve yourself in matters of officials, but at the same time, you are asked to attend negotiation meetings. The only thing I did was to sign a letter of concurrence. And then thereafter, the officials knew their marching order. And what they are supposed to do is to report back. Then we take the process forward. But also, it's not true that the officials are misdirecting us. I really want to disagree with that. What happened here was that, one, everyone has been talking as if they are the only ones who want the post office here. And we've been stating categorically that the post office is a state institution. We are prepared to work with them. But there is an assumption based on discussions, not empirical evidence that says give everything to the post office. The reason we started with giving the RFP to the post office is because the post office is a state institution. They were given priority. And therefore, what is being said here has no basis. Now, we then write letters to say, will you please expand on this? We do have those letters. We also receive a communication saying, we all understand what a workshop is. Workshop, you may do or implement decisions you take there, or you may not implement those decisions. And you may say you do have what it takes to do something or not. And the whole IMC agreed that there must be due diligence. And I'm not going to talk about things that are being said in the IMC. But if my colleagues are honest, I did raise that they need to have someone who is strategic, who is going to really look into their response and upscale it if they can do that, And that never happened. Again, that says we don't want to work with the post office. But also, this is not our personal firm or a home or a family company. Going to the workshop, coming back and say you are moving forward, I'm not sure if that's enough to test the capacity of the post office. I think the officials will give the report on the meeting between SAPO and the post office. But what I know is that the acting CEO, after communicating with the Treasury, responded to the letter from the post office. And Chairperson, we have agreed that on the 3rd of November, we are moving on with the processes of procurement. And then we would like the post office to again enter into this process rather than stopping the work they are doing. But also we would like them to also give a consolidated reports, because we can't get separate or different reports. But also, I don't want to come here and talk about letters that came from Sassa, because also they know what happened when it comes to concurrence. And it's also not correct for us to want a government departments or institutions to follow proper procedures for some of the things, and when it suits us, we support those that do not follow proper processes. Now, I heard one member talking about the staff members giving wrong information on who chairs the committee. I would really like to know who did that, because they all attend the IMC. Even the post office attends. Even Treasury attends. Home Affairs attends. Transport, communications, labor, health, science and technology. So it's a team. It's not just us only in that committee. There is a technical committee that is led by the DG in the presidency. Whether CPS has a license, I don't know. But what I know is that when they were dealing with their bid at the beginning, they presented a letter coming from Nedbank, and ABSA also presented a bank that was going to support them. And here, the post office knows Standard Bank supports them. But I don't know why is that not written in the request, in the response on the request for proposal, because they know that Standard Bank supports them. And then on the issue of external companies, we are very clear about that. Then issue of 650 million and 6.4 billion. Actually, I said plus 5 billion. And it was after the officials that deal with strategy looked into the whole process of transforming Sassa. What we are talking about now is the payment system. And at least we know that for now we are paying 16 Rand 45, and that the post office wants 21 Rand or 21 Rand 20, something like that. At least that we know. And one other thing that I think is putting all of us on the back foot, it's when committees, all of them, those that are in Parliament and those that are out of Parliament, ask for a request for proposal before even the response from the people that are supposed to respond. And it is when members of Parliament want to know who is in the procurement team. That is also disarming, because it's like people want to go out and lobby some people. The officials of Sassa were shocked last week to hear that a letter that was written to the CEO was with some of the members of Parliament. And one of the members of Parliament went out and came back to say, I have spoken to so and so. If Parliament is a lobbying place, let us all do so. Let us all be allowed to lobby members of Parliament. I don't want to talk like this, but I think there is something that is moving towards the direction that is going to finish this whole thing.
Okay.
Right now, we are saying there is a deadlock. We have written to the CEO of the post office, and we are moving forward with the processes. And we want all members of Parliament to understand that this is not only the people that are going to challenge us. Like last time, there are others that are going to challenge us continuously. And what we need from Parliament is to be given earnest advice, not people rushing to have inquiries as if we are not doing our work. We are doing our work. Now, Chairperson, I also agree with you that the Treasury should form part of our meetings, so that they also give guidance on some of the issues that we might think are getting out of hand. Because we did ask them, now is the procurement dealt with in the portfolio committee? And are all departments going to come to portfolio committees and talk about procurement? Are we not setting a precedence? And we all know that the work we are doing is very important. It is about our people. And we have committed to come and give a report. We have never thought about that. We've committed and subjected ourselves actually to following Parliament processes. Don't say shame because
No. Comrade,
please.
Comrade Minister,
Please,
no, please, hang on. If it's not said through me, don't respond to it.
So but also, it's not like we have a bad relationship with a SAPO. We are trying to work together. And surely if you work together, you don't agree on anything. Members of Parliament sitting here don't agree on everything. So we must also be given an opportunity to iron out areas where there is disagreement. But moving forward with the process, we are moving forward. Pen.
Yeah. Before Comrade Minister, I just want you to maybe to clarify a little deeper. You said we are going ahead. SAPO must give a consolidated report. I just want you to maybe go a little deeper into that. How do you see the process of engaging?
Can I make a plea, honestly, that members of this portfolio committee allow the chair to chair and the presenter to present. Please, Honorable Hope. Thank you.
Comrade Minister, just to, before the acting CEO, just to expand from your side, going forward, what do you envisage in terms of your engagement with the post office to try and find each other?
I think that a question should be asked from the post office, because we have been asking for a meeting with them, and we have not discussed issues that we had put forward that we expect should be done by the post office. They must not say what they are going to do just because they are going to bully us and say, no, that can be given to other people, not us. We can do this. When they did not respond to the questions here.
Okay. All right. Okay. Acting CEO of Sassa.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, maybe before I come to the final part that we had with Post Office, I'd like to just to take us back on the procurement process that has unfolded. And because it looks like we're forgetting that there is part that has been given to Post Office. Thank you.
No. I think we. Isn't it, ma'am, last week you indicated that there's a part that you have offered the post office, and the expectation was that you were going, they were supposed to come back to you on Thursday, and you were going to meet to iron out things or whatever. So our expectation was that today you will say, yes, we have signed with the post office, the other processes are going this way. And the report we're getting is that you have not yet signed with the post office. So that's where we are. And that's why I was, in the last part, I was asking the minister, how then do we move from here, seeing that Thursday has come, it has passed, it is Tuesday today, and there's been no agreement signed with the post office?
Okay. Thank you, Chairperson. Maybe just to...
Just a minute, CEO, acting CEO. We must bear in mind that your responses come after the presentation by SAPO. So clearly, from what SAPO is presenting, you are still too far apart. And then we are all in this panic situation because we can see that even if we would allow you to go out now, you wouldn't agree because already there's a disagreement in what we have already presented. And I think that's where the deadlock comes on. Because we all here paralyzed because we depend on the post office and Sassa having a clear time frame and way forward. Otherwise, now is that SAPO says they are dissatisfied. They raise issues. And secondly, you say you wrote to them and so on. So I don't know whether we are going to continue finding these matters between Sassa and SAPO, because obviously in their presentation it was very clear they are poles too far apart, and we need to specifically address that before we can move, because if they are not going to move, We can say every wisdom, but they themselves are clear in their presentation, clear that they didn't come together, that others say the information was scanty, it did not come up, but that there was no follow-up of saying, include this and this. And the post office as well. Now I think each one is closing the hand and they will close their windows. And if we sit here and await, let's find out how CEO is going to get through the impasse. Both CEOs must tell us, how do you deal with this impasse? Or maybe there's no impasse. I think there is.
Yeah. Acting CEO.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, maybe just to recap a bit, Post Office was given systems integrator as well as the biometric and the life certification to actually do that work for Sassa, which is one out of the 4 areas that we had. So we've given the letter, and when we gave the letter to Post Office, we gave them 3 days to respond, and then they requested that we give an extension until Thursday last week, of which we did. Subsequent to that, we received a letter from the CEO of Post Office stating that they would only be able to do what has been offered to them if we include the banking part of the 4 areas that we had as Sassa. So it stated that that would give efficiencies and all of that. So instead of actually answering to the letter at the same time, we requested that we have a meeting. The meeting was to explain that because of the procurement process that has unfolded, I am, as an accounting officer, I cannot be able to change what the evaluation process has actually given, and then the BAC has actually awarded them. And we wanted them to find space so that we can work from what has been given so that we can grow efficiencies around that. In fact, it was still to negotiate in good faith to say we are unable then to move beyond the procurement process or to actually negate what the process has said. That was the reason for the meeting, to say we have seen some other areas over and above what you are going to do. We were going to use you as a merchant, as they were saying that they have already been paying grants, of which we wanted them to go into the space again. We still want them to go to the space of paying grants. And we also explained that we would be able then to use their old and dilapidated buildings to be able to use them as pay points if they are in the kilometer radius that we were supposed to actually do. Okay. But the response was that no, they're sticking to what they want from this letter.
Okay.
They were not going to take whatever else we were going to offer them, you know, to grow around what has been offered to them. Right. And then for that, then I had then to put what I was going to say in writing, to say, unfortunately, I cannot change the procurement processes. And that is where we are. Okay. With the Post Office.
No,
yes.
That's fine. Post Office, why didn't you go to the meeting that was supposed to be?
But there's something that I wanted to mention, Chair, because I've stated last week as well that I did speak to the CEO of Post Office, and even now, if you check your document on page 38 about the cards, it's saying that they can produce about 10,000 a day, which is the amount that is giving us 2.4 million. And we must be mindful that the people
which document?
No, his document, he's got
his
it.
Document?
Yes. And I want to drive
You're referring to this one?
No, we don't have that one. We have not been given that one.
Which one do you have?
The actual, the bid document. The actual
document.
Bid document.
Oh.
So just to stress that whatever has been given, it's what has been in the bid document.
All right.
The evaluation process with the presentations, because the presentation is something else, but the evaluation process and the people that are evaluating will only be able to evaluate what is in the bid document.
The bid documents,
Yes.
okay.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, no, that's fine. Want to give the post office, why didn't you go to the meeting on Wednesday? So that instead of writing each other letters, you sit down and talk. And yeah.
I don't think it's fair, Chairperson. You have given Sassa a chance to respond to questions. You have to give, we've asked a lot of questions as well to the post office. Give them a chance as well to take us through all the questions. I mean, they should not be treated here as some people who are secondary here. They're as important because we've called both of them. So let's give them a chance to respond to all the questions. Don't just topple one question and say, ask that question. Let them respond to all the questions.
That's exactly what I'm doing.
Okay.
I was merely highlighting a point that I think, as they respond, they must not leave out. Is it? And I would like you to talk to this issue about the letter from Magwaza, because the Sassa Act says they need the concurrence of the minister. In its absence, does it make it legal, a legal engagement or what? But respond to all the issues that have been raised.
If I may just start first, then I'll give it to the CEO and the I think my understanding, there's been meetings with Sassa after their first award letter. The purpose of those meetings was to clarify and some of the issues they've raised, so that we find a solution so that we can resolve those issues. That was the purpose of those meetings. But the CEO will put the details when they wrote to them, when they met, and so on. The first thing in this, that's why I say I'm not sure whether it's a procurement process or is it an intergovernmental process. My understanding, if you ask to go to intergovernmental process, you start with the PFMA, then you are granted. That's what naturally then granted. Our understanding is that we have been involved in intergovernmental process in terms of Act 18 of 2005. And that act has got its own deadlock breaking mechanisms, which have not been followed. It's got its own, the Intergovernmental Relations Framework Act of 2005. Because both the previous CEO and the current CEO, they base this relation on this act. So I think that's important that, yes, to come to that act, you start with the PFMA, you get the deviation approval, which has been granted, then you operate in terms of that act. So I think that is important in this deadlock breaking mechanism to also take that into account, because we must act legally. And this has been called a collaboration arrangement or agreement. It has never been called a procurement agreement, or it has been a collaboration so that we can assist the SAP. As we said, the purpose really was not to say we reject this, we do this, was to come with a solution. And we're honestly hoping that the officials will find a solution after the engaging. So I thought we should do that. The CEO will respond to this thing of the amount. If you listen carefully in the presentation earlier, he said the amount is not a do or die issue. But you must also factor a lot of other things, which, because we are not comparing 16 rand and 10 rand, it's not apples and apples, it's totally different things altogether, as is put in an earlier presentation. But our approach is that we still believe that we can still resolve this matter before the inquiries, but it's up to Parliament if they follow the inquiry. It can still be resolved if we follow the legal prescripts to resolve these issues, because the legislators, when they set up these laws, they put them and with their own deadlock breaking mechanism. So that's what we'll urge. And I think as government as a whole, there's a lot which has been said here that maybe the ministers are not committed to make sure that we comply with the directive of the court and make sure that there's continuity of payment. That's not my sense of even the IMC. The IMC doesn't meet every day. It meets so that it can consider where there are challenges and also where, where they need to intervene and guide the process. The last meeting, if I remember, Minister Lamini, it was in September when we were dealing with a report to the Constitutional Court. And clearly we were satisfied at that time with the timeframes and processes which were set up, and we reported those processes to the court, and they are of public. And I'm sure then if the problems arise, I'm sure the committee would be able to meet and deal with some of those challenges instead of, but I didn't have a sense that we are trying to sabotage the South Africans who are so much dependent on this from any of the members of the IMC. I think I should end there, then get the CEO and the accounting authority to deal with specific issues which members have asked. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson and honourable members. I need to state up front that I really wish we could just sit down and find a solution. And I'm open to that discussion. I had a very productive meeting with the acting CEO after our first meeting. And I think they also have expressed a desire to find a solution. I mean, just to put that on the table. Just to get the sequence of events correct, we got a response on the evening of the 18th of October, giving us until the evening of Saturday, the 21st of October, to respond. So I asked for an extension, being the fact that it was in the middle of a weekend for us to consider. In the end, I didn't need that extension, and I responded in full on the 20th, well within the 6-day extension, which they did extend me. And subsequent to the meeting that we had with them the very next morning, I think it was on the 19th, it's my sister's birthday. And we sat at that meeting, you know, trying to better understand what we'd said to each other. You know, I'm just going to speak straightforwardly here. I think that some of the disconnect between us is not based on ill will. It's based on understanding and processes of evaluation and a deep understanding of how the banking system works and what it means if you've got this card, can it do that and not do that, and can a bank do this and can a bank not do that. I don't think there was malice in that misunderstanding. I think there was genuine misunderstanding, and even the CSIR said that the report, and about 60% of the report was not, of the request for the due diligence was not well founded. If you go through the report, you will find many categories on which they don't express a view, because they don't believe that they understand the essence of the debate. So there's been a lot of misunderstanding. And if indeed we did sit together, we could teach one another and find common ground on what a bank card can do, what it means to be a part of the payment system, what interoperable capacity means, and because I would argue that most people in this room are not familiar with all of those terms, you know. But we are, as a bank, we have to be, okay? And so I think that a lot of this stuff is due to an inability to evaluate our capacity because of an absence of deep understanding of what it is that the Post Bank currently can deliver. So I just say that as an invitation, you know, to us sitting down and saying, can you really do this? Show us how it works, and we'll show you, you know. And I know there have been processes, and I obviously support the Minister in saying that we regarded this as an intergovernmental framework interaction, not necessarily something driven by the strict and process rules that you know, open tenders adhere to. We were discussing with one another. So, you know, Minister, you asked about where the 97% comes from. There were 5 categories in that the score was done on the CSIR report, and you either could perform, could partially perform, not perform, perform well, whatever. I counted up the not performs, and I got to 8 out of 218, which by definition means the others you can perform. So you, by logical deduction, you get to 90-something%. Okay, statistics. But the fact of the matter is that there were any number of processes of discovery. Okay, there was the process of the RFP, which we've got fully fledged responses to, and it was a well-considered document in my view. There was the process of engagement where we talked to one another in limited meetings, it must be said. But the acting CEO and I did have a one-to-one discussion after the initial meeting we had after their response. And I reiterate, I really believe that both sides wanted to find a better way and better answer than the one that was on the table. But I'm speculating. That's my view. We then subsequently we had a subsequent meeting where they said, well, why don't you just not accept our offer and we can start a negotiation again or something. We were wary of that in the sense that we wanted to protect what we believe still stands in law, which is the letter of appointment under the collaboration discussion that we've had. Okay. Answering some of the specific questions, yeah, I've been in the banking industry since 1984. You're trying to discover my age or my ability? The numbers that we tabled, the 650 million, are the numbers. Those are the factual numbers which we can have independently determined. I've highlighted the point that that maybe the CSIR mandate and the depth of understanding of the CSIR as well, and I don't say this without due respect, it doesn't get to the core of what is required to be delivered. There's still quite a big gap of understanding by the general public about what the constituent parts of this mysterious social grants payment system is. It's a simple system. It just requires a lot of volume and a lot of big systems, and those we can build easily amongst us. You asked, and I'm not sure it's to the subject, but I'll answer it very quickly. We got the 3.7 billion allocation. It was at this stage we understand it to be expressly for the settlement of bank debt, and we understand, although we haven't had this confirmed, that that was something that the banking industry were having a discussion with National Treasury with. We have engaged with them, and we are engaging with the banks in the next week, because we support entirely the view that actually we're looking for investment capital, not settlement of debt capital. And we also believe that the strength of the balance sheet will now start justifying us to be able to raise capital off our own balance sheet and issuing things like SCOPA bonds and so on. We definitely are going concern. Let there be no mistake. Even prior to the 3.7 billion capital injection, we had a net asset value of 940 odd million. And so we are solvent, completely solvent. We have a liquidity challenge, but that's not the same as solvency. As far as the banking license is concerned, and when that was the stage of development, we submitted our Section 16 reply on the 26th of June. There are two components that are required to be answered, and we've also recently approved the subsequent questions which came out of the Reserve Bank to be resubmitted to them. There's another section, Section 43, which deals with the bank controlling company structure, and there are matters of aligning two acts, which are a matter for Cabinet to consider, the Banks Act and the Companies Act, and there's a matter of which capital construct is one that the Reserve Bank would be happy to deal with, given that the natural holding company of the bank would be SAPA, and you're aware of its state of financial distress previously. So there were just alternative structures which National Treasury and ourselves through DTPS have to agree and submit to the SARB for their approval. So these are capital construct and legal issues, but in substance all of the other matters have been dealt with. I want to refer to the report of the panel, because the report that you're referring to is very out of date. It was signed on the 12th of September, and it relates to meetings and discussions that were had before they ever met SAPA. We met with the panel of experts of the Constitutional Court on the 17th of October, and we gave them a fully fledged presentation, and that report has not yet been produced, and so that would have up-to-date information on our response. The previous report has got no input from us, and we're also meeting with them tomorrow. We've been called again to the panel of experts, and we will present again, and we have given them all the information which you've seen presented here so that they can take it further. I think that we should, as responsible South Africans, not find ourselves lost between process and reality. You know, that's what I beg for, as a novice in this game of parliamentary rules. Let us delve into the reality of what SCOPA can deliver. Let's see if that can assist the efficient payment of social grants, and if it can retain capital in the fiscus and build an asset for our country rather than depending on a third party who we're enabling and becoming increasingly dependent on. That is what we're here to do. Thank you, Chair.
The issue of your...
The last bit, Chair,
okay.
is that...
no, that's fine.
Also, Honorable Chair, I think the last bit is that we want to talk to Sassa, we are talking to them. But at the same time, it would be irresponsible of us as directors of the post office to allow a situation where someone walks away from the legal appointment. We were appointed, and by the authorized official of the Sassa CEO, Mr. Magwaza, and that appointment have never been interfered with. But at the same time, we are saying, in any event, there are discussion, there are processes in terms of the legal framework where the disputes within government institutions are regulated. We'll follow those processes if we have to. But at the same time, from our point of view, and Treasury summed up correctly why there was that appointment, where they said the recent engagement between SAPO and Sassa was convinced that SAPO has the ability and capacity to take over from CPS. SAPO also indicated its willingness on collaboration on a build and operate to transfer arrangement, which was the view based on Sassa submission. And that contract that appointment is still there. There'll be challenges as to how to interpret it, and we are saying maybe the consideration, maybe the intergovernmental processes which our minister spoke about, will have to look at it. But all other available options which are available to solve the disputes amongst individuals will be considered, as the directors will do so.
I was talking specific. I hear you. You're talking to the very formalistic and legalistic part. I'm saying the offer for a meeting to look at what is on the table in terms of what Sassa has, reported. Have you met? Are you still willing to meet over and above what you're saying? Because then what you have said means you reserve your rights in terms of legal process, but in terms of this engagement.
Chair, it will be greatly appreciated. We are continuously engaging with Sassa. In fact, immediately after the appointment, our CEO and Sassa, in fact, our team and Sassa team met. But in addition to that, a one-on-one meeting was held between our CEO and the acting Sassa CEO. But continuously going forward, we are more than willing to engage at whatever level. That will ensure that we achieve the original objectives.
Chair, please may I augment that response by saying this. I mean, of course we'd like to engage, but my understanding is that the acting CEO says they are not able to tamper at all with the decisions of the bid evaluation and bid adjudication committees, and so their stance is not movable at all after their first response. If that's the case, there's little point in us meeting, because we would not accept that small piece of the appointment. So if indeed the authority under the intergovernmental interaction is given for us to interact with one another without having to submit to that point that the acting CEO makes, we'd be delighted to engage.
Chairperson, can I say that I heard the Honorable Nyami saying as SCOPA, you support SAPO. But we haven't actually declared anything as the portfolio committee. Allow me, therefore, to say, in all our meetings, in our duty to oversight the department, we have never say we support.
except that in principle, this is a decision that was brought to us that in all this, CPS will move out. SAPO will be assisted and enabled to collaborate. I think that's the reason why the Portfolio Committee invited the Reserve Bank, for them to outline their role in ensuring that SAPO does this work. So honestly, we didn't want to be lobbied. Honestly, we wanted to keep our hands off, but all we are saying is that this is our obligation. It's not that we will want or not want. We are called upon not to privatize this matter, but to use a home brew that includes our agencies as government. That is why I am in persuasion that I don't think you have exhausted all avenues, Honorable Batabil and Honorable Twele, because in my belief, you are NEC members. We are implementing what was decided, because other people have been talking about DA. It's not that we don't have an organization to refer to. We respect the platform. But also, I must say, Minister is not being begged to do this work. She is in charge because of her status in this government. So this issue of Sianitanda or Asinitandi is not about us. It's about a principal chairperson, if I may refer to you, that we want to compel you to go the route that we want, which is collaboratively working. But I also don't think the CEO would want to behave like other organizations, because you are government, or agency. And therefore you wouldn't want to take everything. I was of a view that once this process has been started, Chairperson, rural communities where you have a footprint, only you, there is only a post office where there's nothing. We thought people would get a situation where cooperatives go and bank, where smallanyana people who do SME would bank in yourself. But I think we are fighting over something that we're not supposed to fight about. Ours is to say, can you then go, because this deadlock is being created by a relationship or a communication process between the two agencies. And as government here, we're here to compel you to go and meet. And then if there are issues, we will go further. All the upper structures that were referred to by members, some saying IMC, some saying top of the government, we will do anything, but that anything is dependent on your cooperation. On your cooperation and honest cooperation. I think maybe cards are not open. It's better that we play our cards openly. I think this meeting has been driving. We were wanting a situation where nobody feels has been gagged, where nobody says, I could have said this. So we have said everything. People who are making us to lock horns or even to see SCOPA different from Portfolio Committee is the issue that we cannot, without talking, immediately agree on something we have not discussed. But this platform for us has been very helpful, and I'm still believing that there are no two government agencies that can hate each other to an extent that they collapse the state. I don't believe so. And I think this opening up is helping. If only the committee would allow, members of parliament in particular, would allow these members to commit that they are going to talk tomorrow. We are prepared to come anytime and sit in these chairs and listen to the progress. Because Honorable Batabile Dlamini, we can't go out this week without knowing what if
one of you goes to court to dispute a letter, whether it was legally right or not. That is a technical error if it's an error. It requires our commitment and the political will to sort it out. And as well as not knowing that if we put up a process, everyone wants this business. And there's going to be court going, who will then render the service? Because there will be allegations, abanye bafunu CPS, they sleep with CPS, they do this with this. So the finger pointing is not going to, what is the reality? Comrade Bata and Comrade Etwele, can you please help us out that you will prevail politically over these structures so that they go and meet and we come and meet and listen to a better report?
Yeah, maybe.
Sorry.
No. I want the ministers maybe to respond to this point because it might assist us. I'm happy to see you smile, Comrade Minister.
Chair, can I request that when the ministers respond, they also include the timelines?
No, that's fine.
Because they clearly there is a will that is to meet, but we need to measure that
that's fine.
On time.
Sorry, Chair, before we go there, can I just ask a point of clarity on something that Mr. Barnes said?
Yeah, we'll come to that.
Because it could affect the way that this goes forward.
No, let's tie that point about meetings from these two, and then if there's any further clarity, we'll definitely give you. Comrade Minister Lamine.
Oh.
I'm the one pointing.
Chairperson and co-chairperson, members of Parliament, I think we've said from the word go that we are committed to this process. But I still believe that talking makes things better than coming with different views and stick on your guns. But also, when you sit in a meeting, you raise some of the things. You propel a follow-up question. There is a letter here from the Treasury to Mr. Magwaza that was read by the chair. But there is 0.5678 that I'm not going to read, which says the...
Which you are not going to read.
Okay. All right, but we must all read it so that we have a full understanding of what is expected from us.
But you are committed to
Yes,
an
I
immediate
am
engagement.
committed. You see also the issues of how long have you worked in a particular place. Where do they come from? Because we are also all going to run and look into the history of people and maybe find things that we did not want to know about.
Okay.
So we must not
All right.
do those things, Chairperson.
No, that's fine. Comrade Kwele.
Comrade Chair, honorable members.
I've said I want the two ministers to
Yes.
commit. So let's allow both of them to talk, and then we tie that part, and then we can engage on other issues.
Honorable Chair, honorable members.
Comrade Minister
there is-
Lamine.
Please, they are disturbing. There is no problem in meeting or directing meeting between me and Minister Lamine. We can do that. We do speak quite a lot. And then what will be helpful is for the officials to meet as a matter of urgency. Because if we meet, as I've said, at least Minister Lavini's got some clause in the Sassa Act. I'm not in the procurement committee. I don't play, but I oversee processes. if the officials can meet as a matter of urgency and deal with those issues.
Comrade Minister,
Yes.
maybe let's do this.
Yes.
I want to come back to what the chair was suggesting. Is it possible, and that's why we wanted your concurrence as the political heads,
Yes,
is it possible for us to agree here that when we leave this meeting, for whatever period of time you will meet, and that tomorrow we could meet here in the evening and get feedback from your meeting, so that we don't make it a general. We can talk, we do talk.
No, I was saying we don't have a problem to meet. But to be realistic, if you think we can meet and get the responses tomorrow, I think it's over-enthusiastic.
Well, we are over-enthusiastic because
Yes.
time is not on our side.
I'm more of a realist because we can meet, but share the point. If you can just bear with me, because we can say this meet. The people who really deal with this procurement is accounting officers. They've raised issues. They say they can find each other. They may not find each other. So we're going to still be dependent on them, on what they do in terms of exchanging the services between themselves.
Can I do this, Comrade? I hear you. Comrade Lamin, I thought you wanted to come in. I'm saying, is it possible that these officials, I mean, you are their political heads. Can they meet and we...
They have to. It's a must. Even if they come back and say, they have to meet. And if they don't find a solution, they have to sit right through the night and end up coming with the solution. I think that is what you have to do.
Can we Comrade Kwele and Comrade Lamin, Comrade Lamin, can we agree that they will meet, and then tomorrow evening, 6 o'clock, we'll meet here again you see, Mr. Barnes, I'm talking to your political, principles. We meet tomorrow evening and get feedback.
Can I, with your permission, Chair?
Yeah.
Can I, on behalf of SAPO, agree that we are going to meet? And can I also request SAPO people to avail themselves from now on not to leave Cape Town until we have met, and we submit to you tomorrow.
Tomorrow, 6 o'clock. Right. Now, what is going to happen? We have made an arrangement now with my co-chair. When we leave this meeting, we're going straight to the Speaker's office. We're going to meet with Comrade Frolic. We're going to give him this report, this outcome that we've agreed upon. So whatever we're deciding here, we're taking it to the Speaker's office to say this is what we've agreed. From our side, all these members are going to be here at 6 o'clock tomorrow in the evening. And we hope that from your side, as no, I'm still talking. From your side as Sassa and SAPO, let's come back with an agreement. And I'm saying, Comrade Kwele, I hear you that indeed procurement resides with the officials. And I have said officials, ministers must stay away from procurement processes. But this is not a simple case. That's why we're discussing it. There are hundreds of procurements that Sassa is doing. We're not sitting and discussing them, but we're discussing this one because of its unique nature. So I'm saying, therefore, I wouldn't want you to be at an arm's length from your officials, you see, unless if your officials, revolt and do as they please. But I would certainly expect that there should be a role at a political level that you play to ensure that, same thing with Sassa. we can't come with a you can't go into negotiation with fixated positions. Otherwise, what's the point of negotiating? There is none. So I would say, can we leave it at that and say that is the arrangement? If there's any other issue, let's discuss it tomorrow at 6. Treasury. Will your presence assist the process, or should we leave it to them? Yes.
No, we will certainly support where possible, and we will be there as observers, as I said.
Comrade Vincent?
No, thanks. No, Chair. You're being too kind to officials. We can't ask them whether they're going to attend or not, Chair. I think we must say to them, you see, when we set up the procurement office, we set it up specifically to help us with this deadlock. So what we should be saying to Treasury is that when the two departments come and account, they too must come and account. They too must come and say to us, how do they see us resolving this thing? Chair, I'm repeating, we can't after tomorrow have another postponement of this matter. We just cannot have after tomorrow another postponement. At some point we must take a decision, as difficult as it's going to be. We're going to have to take a decision. So my proposal, Chair, is that both departments and Treasury must come and say to us, how do we fix this thing up? Otherwise, Chair, we can't outsource our responsibility. We will take a decision.
All right, that's fine, comrades. I think let us leave the matter here. We'll meet tomorrow, 6 o'clock in the evening, to be told what has been agreed upon. Thank you very much.
Meeting adjourned.
There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Please be seated. Honorable members, before I proceed to the order of the day, I wish to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's Bay of the delegation from the Parliamentary Budget Office of the Parliament of the Republic of Uganda. We wish to welcome you to our Parliament. Then we also have honorable members by directive of Minister Mapisa Ngakula, Minister of Defense and Military Veterans, a note regarding the presence of Mr. Kaila Mutari, Minister of Defense from the Republic of Niger in the National Assembly. We welcome all our guests to the Parliament of the Republic of South Africa. The first to the fourth orders will be read by the Secretary of the National Assembly.
Speaker.
Honorable Ndlozi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to rise with all earnestness and with due respect. At Speaker, we have a big problem in that we cannot be seen to be compliant
Honorable
and corroborating
member,
with crime.
what is the point on which you are
This
rising?
is the point of 92 in terms of the rules. We can't allow Mr. Gigaba to address Parliament because he's the sole reason why we have a state of capture in South Africa.
Please take your seat.
He's the one that has handed all public state institutions to a collapse with the Guptas, Honorable Speaker. Parliament can't be seen to legitimate what is essentially a Gupta stooge. There's no difference between him and Dutuzane.
Honorable Rosie, please
It's
take your
literally
seat.
going there. He's an extension of Mr. Zuma in the Treasury to frustrate our funds.
Please take your seat.
We are persuading this House that let's allow the commission to be set up. Let's not be associated with criminals. Gigaba is a criminal.
Honorable Speaker,
He's
may
a
I
mini Zuma.
ask? May I ask? The Sergeant at Arms, where's the Sergeant at Arms? Should go and assist Mr. Ndlozi to leave the House.
Honorable
you must
Speaker.
first ask him to leave.
Honorable Speaker.
Cannot.
Speaker.
You must first ask him to
Honorable
leave.
Speaker.
Speaker, in terms of the rules, you don't enforce that law in that way. There's a legitimate issue that is being raised here.
Honorable.
You can't allow a Gupta boy,
Honorable.
a boy of the people to address this house.
Honorable Shibam, you will also have to be assisted to leave the House if you want to.
Collaborate us in crime here. So that is a simple issue that we are requesting that
You can't just rise and say such and such a person is not allowed in the House. You have no such power yourself. So please take your seat or
But there's a
leave
legitimate
the
question
House.
that we're raising here, Speaker.
Honorable Shibam.
We're raising a legitimate question.
Honorable Speaker.
Point of order, Chair. King,
The Sergeant at Arms.
Honorable Speaker.
Must please assist.
Honorable Speaker. You cannot just decide to remove people when you feel like it.
Speaker. That is not how this procedure is implemented.
I will now switch off.
This wrong.
Honorable Speaker, there are procedures in this House.
That is not how you implement the Sergeant at Arms.
Honorable members, I have asked you to take your seats, and I'm now on the floor, and I'm asking you to be orderly and to take your seats. And I am going to I'm going to follow the order, I'm going to follow the rules, and I will let you know at the correct point what I would wish done. And you will not disrupt the business of this afternoon. And if you insist on your behavior, we shall have to ask you to leave us to proceed with the business of the House. Today, we are going to have the business of the House proceeded with. And we insist on the business of the House proceeding. And it can't be your word against mine. The Secretary shall proceed.
Medium-term budget policy statement, introduction adjustments appropriation bill, introduction rates and monetary amounts and amendment of revenue laws bill, introduction taxation laws amendment bill.
Honorable members of the EFF, before I call upon the minister, I want to know whether you have made up your mind which one of you I'm listening to.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. We're raising a legitimate question here that South Africa is in crisis because of Mr. Gigaba, who ended over state
Honorable Shibambu,
to the Guptas.
That's not a valid point.
And we are collaborating in crime if we allow him to address this
Honorable
Shibambu. The Constitution
the Minister of
has got an
Finance is going to
obligation on
address us.
So no, he's not going to do that today.
He's going to do it.
No, it's not going to happen today. We can't be collaborators of
Honorable
crime
Shibambu,
that is going to be committed by Manusugaba today.
That
is a
is
simple
not
message that was saying that we can't allow Manusugaba to speak today.
Honorable Shibambu,
we're not going to have parliament today.
I
As
wish
simple
to
as that.
proceed. I wish to proceed, and therefore it means you can't stay in the House while we are proceeding, because we are going to proceed with the business of the House this afternoon. And so I have to ask that you leave the chamber, Honorable Shibambu.
The Chief Whip of the ANC. I'm not going to go anywhere, Speaker. We're not leaving to anywhere. This is our parliament. We've been elected by the people of South Africa.
Honorable
We're not
Shibambu.
going to allow a criminal to address this House today, please.
No, Honorable Shibambu. You really have to take yourself and your job seriously. And therefore,
Speaker,
having given you the opportunity,
Honorable Speaker,
to comply,
Speaker, on the
with the
basis
rules,
of what are you
I'm
dismissing
now
Honorable
asking
Shibambu?
you if you
On
don't
the basis
want to
of
stop
what?
disrupting,
He spoke and you allowed
leave
him
the
to
House.
speak.
Order, Speaker.
And whilst he was speaking, you did not rule.
Speaker, I'm calling
on the
on
basis
point
of what?
order.
Honorable members, you know that if you have any allegations about the minister, how you must submit them. You
Speaker,
know
can
how
I
to
speak?
submit them, not in this rowdy, disruptive fashion.
Speaker, we are not rowdy. We are calling for a point of order as members of parliament. Can you recognize us? Can you listen to us? Don't rush us, Speaker. Just listen to us and then respond. There are rules in this House, Speaker. We can't just yes, you please.
The chief whip of the majority party, I'm told, has had his hand for
But
some
Speaker,
time.
can you recognize me first?
No, I'm not recognizing.
My hand is up, Speaker.
Honorable Chief Whip, please
But Speaker,
proceed.
you see, we are not neutral.
I am not
I have my hand
recognizing
up
you. I've
before
told you.
the Chief Whip
Take
of
your
the
seat,
ANC.
Honorable Sope.
Yeah, please recognize me as well. I'm the member of this House
Take
as well.
your
like
seat,
he-
Honorable Sope. Please take, rise, Honorable.
Speaker, before you
Thank you,
allow...
Honorable Speaker.
Speaker.
Our rules, Honorable Speaker, are clear, and they say if anyone in this House has an allegation to make against any member of this House, it can only be made through a substantive motion. This is in our rules. But secondly, Speaker, Rule 85, that deals with reflections upon members, the President and ministers or deputy ministers who are not members of the Assembly, says, no member may impute improper motives to any member or cast personal reflections upon a member's integrity or dignity, or verbally abuse a member in any other way. What the EFF is doing today, Honorable Speaker, is reflecting badly on a Minister of Finance without substantively putting a motion before this House. In fact, they are in conflict with our rules as we speak now. This is gross violation on their part of our rules. We agree with you, Speaker. It's either they toe the line of these rules or leave the House.
We are not here to legitimize criminals in the name of rules, Mr. Mutembu. You couldn't stop corruption from that side. It defeated you. Now you want to bring it to Parliament with rules. Gigaba is a Gupta stooge. He's there to steal the people's resources. That is what he is.
I have given you a further opportunity to comply with the directives of the chair as assisted by the Sergeant at Arms and the General House that is cooperative and waiting for us to proceed with the business of the House, and the honorable, supposed to be honorable members of the EFF benches are consistently showing an attitude of not being able and not willing to respect the House and to respect the rules.
That is not how rules are applied.
Honorable Shibambu, I'm not going to be lectured by you about what the rules are saying. I am not going to allow you, and I'm asking you now to leave the chamber. Honorable Shibambu,
you can't generalize the whole caucus of the
Honorable Shibambu,
who are you talking about now?
I'm talking about Honorable
Address me
Shibambu.
then.
If you know what your job
Address me only,
is.
don't address the whole caucus.
I am
If you're
also
dealing with
addressing
me alone.
Honorable Ndlozi, and I'm addressing all
Must I
other
stand when you address me?
EFF
Must I stand or sit down when you address me?
all other EFF members who've
Must
been
I take
also
my seat when you
disruptively
address me?
raising their so-called points of order when they know that they are being disruptive, including Honorable Mkhalipi.
But Speaker,
I am
what must
not
we do?
recognizing you,
But we
Honorable
have
Member.
our hand up, Speaker, and you don't want to point
Take
at us.
your seat.
But you give Jackson Mthembu the chance to speak. Why are you not neutral, Speaker? We are members of Parliament.
You
are
don't
equal.
want to be given a chance
Yes,
to speak.
I had my hand
You want
up.
to disrupt
No,
the House.
we are members.
You want to be disrupting the
No,
House. That's
Speaker,
what you've
please
come with.
listen to us.
Honorable members,
Rule 31. Rule 31, Speaker. Speaker, you are inconsistent, you are biased. You have just given Mr. Jackson Mthembu an ample of time to address the House without interrupting him. South Africa.
Honorable
he is
members,
the one that has enabled
Honorable
Guptas
members, I will now have to call
to force the country into this perpetual corruption. So we are saying this man, he must not address the House today. Because if he addresses the House, we will be complicit to corruption.
This is what is going to happen. This is what is going to happen. We're giving a way forward now. We're going to leave you to continue with your corruption and listening to a corrupt person. We're not going to form part of this nonsense. of a captured soul called Manusu Gigaba, were surrendered. Our companies is going to sell telecom today.
We
Yes,
welcome
we do
your
that
leaving
every
the
time.
house.
He's going to finish off this country because of the corruption that is presided over by Jacob Zuma. and the-
Honorable
What now do
Shibambu,
this thing?
we welcome you leaving the house.
Dr. Puppet. This is not your house, this is our house.
Gigawa is a puppet.
I call upon
Masela lawa.
the Minister of Finance.
Leave there.
Thank you. Honorable Speaker, Mr. President, Deputy President, Cabinet colleagues and Deputy Ministers, Deputy Minister of Finance, MECs for Finance, leaders of political parties, Governor of the Reserve Bank, Commissioner of the South African Revenue Service, representatives of organized business and labor, civil society and faith community leaders, honorable members, fellow South Africans, Molweni, Sanbonani, Dumelang, Goeiemiddag, Absheni. It is my privilege to present the 20th medium-term budget policy statement for consideration of the House and all South Africans. I also table the adjusted estimates of national expenditure, the adjustments of appropriation bill, the bill of revenue amendment, the division of revenue amendment bill, taxation laws amendment bill, tax administration laws amendment bill, rates and monetary amounts and amendment of revenue laws bill. As we consider the medium-term outlook, one is reminded of a poem by Ben Okri entitled Poetic Fight, which I quote, "Will you be at the harvest among the gatherers of new fruits? Then you must begin today to remake your mental and spiritual world and join the warriors and celebrants of freedom, realizers of great dreams. You can't remake the world without remaking yourself," quote unquote. With these words, with these evocative words, Okri challenges us to remake ourselves in order to remake the world around us. To become the realizers of great dreams, we must challenge and reimagine ourselves, be prepared to reinvent and create anew. As part of this mammoth effort, and in one of the most important achievements of the fourth democratic administration, a national development plan was developed 5 years ago, constituting a long-term vision for the country. The NDP was developed through an unprecedented and remarkably inclusive process, canvassing the views of South Africans from all walks of life, and drawing in the best national expertise and minds as embodied by the distinguished and diverse groups of national planning commissioners who developed the plan. This culminated in the Vision 2030, which spelled out what was required to realize our aspirations for our society and for all who live in it. It was absolutely critical for Vision 2030 to use as a starting point the aspirations of our people. That is what government is about, and that is what development is also about, putting in place the conditions for people to realize their aspirations for themselves. This is true to Okri's clarion call, which exhorts us not merely to be at the harvest or the realization of the dreams, but to be among the gatherers of the fruit and the realizers of the great dreams. To be present at the Letsima not merely as the beneficiaries of the harvest of great fruit, but as an active participant of the sowing and ultimately one of the harvesters.
The NDP envisages a future in which our people will not be passive beneficiaries of the largesse of democracy, but indeed active builders and midwives of the South Africa we want. Indeed, we must all be prepared to plant the seeds of the harvest. As Indian Nobel Prize laureate and development economist Amartya Sen observed in his book, Development as Freedom, I quote, "Development has to be more concerned with enhancing the lives we lead and the freedoms we enjoy. Expanding the freedoms that we have, expanding the freedoms that we have reason to value not only makes our lives richer and more unfettered, but also allows us to be fuller social persons, exercising our own volitions and interacting with and influencing the world in which we live," unquote. Our people aspire to raise their children in the conditions of safety, free from threats of sexual assault, drugs, and gangsterism. They aspire to live healthy lives with access to medical care to prevent and treat illnesses. They aspire to develop their capabilities through education and training, apprenticeships and employment, to build wealth sufficient to live a decent lifestyle now and in their years of retirement, and to leave something to their families after passing on. And they aspire, perhaps above all, to actualize themselves, to take advantage of all that life has to offer, and pursue their dreams as masters of their own destiny. At its core, it is this fundamental purpose of enabling people-centered development that is and must be the central objective of government, and the capable and developmental state called for by Vision 2030. In this regard, the medium-term budget policy statement is an important opportunity to reflect on the country's finances and economic outlook, and to what extent this outlook supports our national development objectives as articulated in Vision 2030. It is an opportunity to think about how we must remake ourselves if we are to reach the harvest evoked by Okri. We are giving an honest view of the challenges facing our country. It is not in the public interest, nor is it in the interest of government, to sugarcoat the state of our economy and the challenges we are facing. It is only when we understand these challenges fully and candidly that we will know what to do and can decide what course we must take in addressing them, as well as what trade-offs we must make in the national interest. The fiscal framework we present to you recognizes this and does exactly this. The period ahead is not going to be an easy one. Our resolve is to remain on course and not to deviate irretrievably from the fiscal consolidation agenda we embarked on a few years ago. We will continue to optimize, to squeeze and innovate, to improve the quality and efficiency of our spending. We will continue to explore options available to us to stretch the reins in our care, to address the challenges faced by the majority of the South African people, particularly unemployment, poverty, and inequality, and the myriad social problems which emanate from these. It is tough, but we must rise.